Oh, that was fast.
What's
I didn't
up,
even have time
everybody?
to awkwardly start a sentence.
Oh, sorry. You could still start a sentence now,
Um,
or we can just go.
let's just. I mean, we're here.
I mean, Shams is here.
The point is that you don't hear the start of the sentence. So if I were to start a sentence now, it would still kind of defeat the purpose.
You're so quiet.
It would defeat the porpoise.
Okay. Well, that's okay. We'll do that bit another
Say
time.
quiet.
Yeah, just that last thing you were saying. You were like really like whispering it.
Yeah, you've. I don't know if it's my mic.
I don't think it was the
maybe
mic. It was
I'm
your
just
voice.
like more generally tired. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like the last like month or two, you mentioned a couple times that like
I think
you
do
really
this thing.
get quiet. You really trail
I think sometimes
off.
at the end of a sentence, yeah, you're like that. Like, let me try to do a Brian impression, but I guess people could go back to the video. But something along the lines of like I was gonna do something at the start of the sentence, but it just kind of defeats the purpose. And
Yeah,
so
just get. I
that's
think I
not-
run out of steam halfway
Yeah, it's like the
through.
sentence. You're regretting the sentence that you started. You wish you didn't have to finish it, but you might as well.
Maybe
Which is-
maybe I'm starting the sentence from like a lower place. You know, like for like peak and if my energy used to be up here to start a sentence, that gives me more landing space.
I feel like you always bring it
to go
once.
down.
Yeah,
But if I start, but maybe I'm starting like more
you're starting
mid,
too low.
and then like I'm bottoming out way too soon.
I don't know though. During the podcast, you usually don't have that decline.
No, I think I start higher through the
You
podcast.
start high, but I think you stay high. But I guess
Mm.
that's something for us all to monitor as we're watching you today. We'll watch you Would that make you feel pressure if like I was like we're gonna watch you extra carefully today?
You know what? It would inspire me, motivate me, drive me.
You know what I was thinking about recently? There was
Tell
a
me.
question on the Discord. One of the patrons asked, "Are the daily ramblings useful?"
Yeah.
And it just got me thinking, like, is our podcast useful?
I knew that's exactly where you were going with that.
Because it's just kind of like, I don't know if it's.
I
I mean, it.
I think it's
Also,
useful.
is our goal for it to be useful? Are we trying to put out the most useful podcast? Or are we trying to put out like a fun? Like, what's more important? Is the listener like? Let's say that the listener could only choose one. It's either useful or it's like whatever, entertaining, somewhat. What would they choose? Would they like
a useful podcast? So a podcast. Well, I think they choose a good balance, which I hope
Yeah.
is what we are.
But let's say we had to choose one. Let's say
Okay,
let's say
if we
right
had
now. Okay, it's like let's say it's
Okay.
like Fallout, and we just got a charisma point or something. We could allocate it to whatever bucket we
Sure.
want. Would you add it to more useful or more like we're more fun?
Well, okay, but that's a tough choice because you're saying more, and it depends on like what the baseline
Well, what do
level
you think our
is.
baseline is? Where
I
are
think
we now?
I think we've got a pretty good split.
Uh-huh.
Maybe we trend a little funner than useful.
So we'd put if we got an extra dollop, we'd
I
throw
don't
it in the
know.
useful column.
Like I don't think there's a point of having something useful if it's not fun.
Well,
But there is a point to
there
having
is a
something
point.
fun if it's not useful.
I mean, if it helps you win your fantasy league, but it's not
Okay,
fun. It's
so
like
what
eating
if-
your vegetables. You
what
know,
if
it's
we
like listen to this
created,
podcast and you'll win. I don't care if you don't like it.
The worst, like the least entertaining podcast possible. Like we were just like reading numbers.
We should try it one time just to see if people.
I don't
care.
think people would enjoy that. I don't think people would come back.
They wouldn't enjoy
for
it.
more.
The problem is I can't guarantee that it'll be useful. But like if I
Well,
could
yeah,
ever,
because we don't know how good, like
yeah.
we don't know how right we're going to be in the first
All right,
place. Like we're
here's
playing
the
in the
plan.
margins here.
If
We
I
do our
ever get a
best.
time, if I ever
I
get a
think our
time
record is
machine,
as good as anyone's.
I hope so. I don't know. The trick is to not keep track. If I ever get a Back to the Future 2
Trev.
situation, Trev's kind of keeping track. So yeah, if I ever get a Back to the Future 2 and I get the almanac and I know the results, I'm going to put out a podcast that's really boring, but with all the perfect predictions, and I'll be curious to hear the feedback. I guess the
Okay.
feedback maybe the next day will be bad, and then a month from now, we'll be able to be like, oh,
I mean, if you were like Nostradamus and you got everything right, yeah, people would sit down and listen to it and like,
like, I wish
act
this guy had a
accordingly.
personality, but take what I can get.
yeah.
Anyway, that was something that I thought about for a little bit. Is it useful? What's in useful? Like, guess what? Playing fantasy hockey in general isn't useful. Sorry to break it to everybody. Like, it's fun, but it's
Okay,
not-
but we
what's the
I think
use?
but we need to contextualize useful in terms
Yeah.
of those who are like who are looking for something useful in fantasy hockey.
sometimes I like think if I were to stop playing, it's just Nothing happened. Like this thing that consumes me, I could just like that.
What
And I
would
was
you
like,
do?
I don't know. Read a book. I don't know.
You would not read it. What's the last
I'd
book you read?
play a game. I'd come up with something. Don't ask me the last book I read because I've been playing a lot of fantasy hockey. I got 3 dynasties. I don't have time to read a book.
For well over a decade at this
I read
point.
I read the Dauber Ramblings, which I find definitely more useful than fun. It's not like so fun reading the Dauber Ramblings. It's not like there's like turn of phrase.
I think that's the question. But the Dauber Ramblings more useful than fun, or more fun
I find
than
the Dauber
useful?
Ramblings are useful just because it's like just a recap of what happened. I don't even need the fantasy advice in the Dauber Ramblings. It's like save the space. Just give me the recap. Which player? But that's what our podcast is kind of also. Sometimes I feel like if you just had the Elon side of the podcast, it would still be pretty useful because it's just like, here's what's up. And then I ask the questions, and then you get to answer for yourself. Oh, is Trevor Zegers going to keep up the hot streak? And then the person could decide. Like, Brian doesn't really know. Brian's going to try to guess. We'll see.
Yeah. You know what would be fun is if one week we put out 3 versions of the podcast. One
Just
with
Brian.
both of us, then the just Elon and just the Brian and just
Okay.
Brian.
Just Brian will be the trickier one because the context of the question. It's hard to just have answers to questions without knowing what the question was.
You're right, and I don't
You
name
do a
the
good job,
player
though.
right away, but I do repeatedly throughout.
Yeah.
So that would make it a little tricky. It would have
Maybe
to be
someone
like
could
player
release that cut
name
for us.
and then just Brian, and then my analysis.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably better than most. Like, I'll bet you for most of it, people would be able to guess what the question was partway through. It'd be like kind of every single time you start talking, the mystery is like to try to figure out like who he's talking about and what was the question that he's answering.
I would hope within 10 seconds.
Okay.
People would be
That's
able
another
to
thing
figure
for
it
us to
out.
monitor. Anyways, I don't know why I'm procrastinating because I
Yeah.
usually love to.
Could we start?
But it's fun. I'm just having fun.
Me too. You know, we have a
But is it
Patreon
useful?
schedule.
Should we do it this Wednesday?
Is it useful to you? This Wednesday.
I could do it.
I can't.
Okay.
I
Another day
can't
this
do
week?
Tuesday or Wednesday.
I can't do. I might be able to do Thursday.
I could do Monday. That's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. I
And
could
I
maybe
could-
do Monday.
I could do Thursday.
Okay, let's chat.
If we did tomorrow, I'd need to start like 8:30.
Okay, I would need to talk to my people. We're going to be in Ottawa. I'm going to be visiting you. Like, could we record a live patron cast?
Maybe
we have to also we have to record like a live regular podcast. Also.
Well, how long will you be in Ottawa for?
Just till Tuesday, Saturday till Tuesday. Not very long.
What if Monday?
Monday night.
We can like rent out space at a public library, and maybe we can like set
have
up
an
a
audience?
table. Although the library's only open till probably like 8 or 9.
I should probably help put my kid to sleep. Unfortunately.
Okay.
But I like this idea in theory. Let's talk this through. Live patron cast in Ottawa a week from Monday.
Okay.
Okay.
But you just said you're not going to be able to.
I could do it just not at the library, but somewhere.
But
Somewhere
it would
where
be
we can
nice
start
to
at
invite an
8:30.
audience.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that part out. Maybe
What if
someone's
they
house.
invite them to the basement of the home where you're putting Noah to bed?
What if one of our patrons in Ottawa has a really big house with a nice recording area? Let's put that question out to the patrons. So does anyone want to host Brian and I, where we'll record the patron cast and then we'll watch hockey and hang out after?
This is like WWF in your house.
But like, yeah, like we'll bring some refreshments. Like we'll bring a case of beer and some snacks.
You'll bring a case of beer.
Well, fine, but I'll use the KK credit card.
Okay. I'll bring a case of beer. One of us gets to look generous. It's going to be
that'll
me.
be fun. Let's do this. There's got to be one patron in Ottawa who would like to have us over that has like a room that's.
I don't know.
Someone who probably doesn't have a kid. We need someone who doesn't have a kid.
I'd rather find
a library. It's not as fun of a hang. Like I want to drink beer maybe while we're doing it. Make it a fun thing.
Oh, you know
Can't
what? We could see like if a city of Ottawa. Oh, we'd probably need a liquor license. Yeah.
I just think a person's house works if there is one. We'll ask. Let's start this
I'm
show.
a little
Let's do this.
skittish about going to new people's homes.
What if it's just me and you going? Are you skittish about yourself going or inviting like the other patrons to go to this patron's home?
No, I have no reservations about inviting other people into
You're
someone
skittish about
else's home.
your own safety?
It's not even a safety thing. It's just like
I got together with Derek for the first time. It wasn't in his house. We went to a bar, but it was delightful.
Right.
But I guess if he would have invited me to his house, I probably would have gone. Why not? Anyway, well, let's think about it. Maybe there's a patron that we even know that you're already friendly with. Edward, I owe Edward a beer. He made the logo that's now at the top of GameDayTweets.com, and I was like, "How much do I owe you?" And he was like, "Buy me a beer next time you're in Ottawa."
Edward
Maybe
has
Edward.
a child. That's not going to
Okay.
work.
Well, it's a thought. All right,
Okay.
let's start. Let's do this show. It's 8:20.
It'd be
Jesus.
nice if we could rent like a room in a restaurant.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know about the audio
party room.
quality. That's the problem. Is the audio quality of the
These
Patreon cast.
microphones, they're
I
good.
guess. Maybe. I mean, that's an idea. The Works, don't they have a room?
It's, what's ridiculous is that is where my mind was when I said party. Like, I have not been to like a restaurant. I have not been to the Works in like more than 10 years. And like
There
not
are
gone
8
there
people
like
watching
of
right
my,
now.
my own volition for like at least probably 20, 15. Like I've
Okay, we'll figure
accompanied
this out.
other people who chose the Works.
What if, Brian, there was a patron in Toronto who
Yeah.
wanted to offer this? We could use podcast money to pay for you to take a train to Toronto to record the patron cast.
Fly in. I want to fly in.
Let's do train.
Record
Let's not be crazy. We don't have that much money. Though that one patron who keeps asking if there's a prize for the couple, they think we have like, a lot of money.
They're gonna have a field day with that. They're gonna put us in their community in their zine, their newspaper.
All right, let's
Someone who's really unhappy. They think we're like Scrooge McDuck over here as cupful commissioners.
yeah.
They're very unhappy that they're contributing a $5 bill to that.
Well, anyway, they
To
could
our
be
Scrooge
listening to
McDuck
this.
pile.
Well, that's good. Okay.
You know what? Let them.
I mean, I'm doing okay. It's like a fun hobby. It's like a good side gig. But like, just
Yeah.
if anyone's curious, like, I could not like quit my job and support my family with keeping Karlsson.
Nor
So
could we probably pay someone to do a lot of the jobs we do.
oh yeah, per hour we're definitely making less than a lot of money.
Yeah.
But anyway, whatever. We're having a good time.
We're having a blast.
I'd be having a better time if my freaking couple team. But that's a whatever. I'm still having a really good time. It's even more fun that my team loses. I like. When
I
that
don't care that
happens.
my team loses.
All right, let's start. I just want to sound smart on the podcast, but we'll see. We'll see how this week goes.
What's more important to you, winning your pool or sounding smart on the podcast?
I think probably sounding smart on the podcast.
Yeah, but you don't get that, like, I bet you don't, you don't get the same
Well, 'cause you don't have the
adrenaline
feedback.
hit.
It's not
from
like someone's
being-
writing after the show being like, Elon, you sounded really smart on that episode. Like, so I just have to kind of say it to myself.
Yeah.
Like, I hope I was
You-
smart on that podcast.
You need to really find that intrinsic validation.
Yeah. The
Or
only
like as you
feedback-
read the accountability channel from Trev.
Yeah, I
and
read the
yes,
accountability travel
Yes.
channel.
Oh,
yeah,
I
but
nailed
usually it's
that.
like yeah, but usually it's like 10 things and it's like I nailed 6 and blew 4 if I'm lucky. So it's it's like usually it doesn't make me feel too amazing to read the month look back. It'd be nice if one month is just this episode, the month look back. Trev, mark this down. I don't know if Trev listens to the pre-show. Elon predicts that the month look back from this show is going to be all correct.
Wow. Elon
Oh,
is
Trev's
calling
here.
his shot, and Trev is here to hear it.
Okay.
Elon's going to get 100% right. I
On
love
this
that.
episode.
I believe
All
in
right.
you.
Let's see.
I have a question for you, just like logistically.
Okay, we're about to start.
I know the order. You don't,
Yeah,
unless you've peaked.
I haven't peaked.
Okay. How are we gonna you introduce the teams,
I'm gonna be like, Brian, where are we going next? You'll say, and I'm like, sounds good. I got
and
a
then
topic.
you'll have to like frantically find the
It won't be
player.
frantic. I've been doing this a long time, pal.
All right.
Don't worry about it. I'm gonna do Control F. We'll be right there.
But you'll have to like remember the player
What do you
we're-
mean
that we're meant
What do
to
you mean?
talk about. You did yours by team. Yes.
I got all the
okay,
teams
you're
on the
good.
dock.
You're
I'll
good.
jump to the
yeah,
team.
but for my list, I wrote the player and not the team.
well,
That's what happened here.
that was an insane choice. But you'll
I'm,
figure it.
I'm good. I know where.
But then
we're
I guess as
going.
I start recommending talking about the player, then you'll Control F.
I'll know
and
exactly
find-
where. Yeah.
Okay, we got this. Or this will be a 3-hour show that's starting in a half hour late.
Oh
and,
my god. We
that'll
should
be
probably be done by 10:15. Can we aim for that?
yes, let's aim for that. Okay.
I know what the subtext there is.
Okay, let's go.
Okay.
Yeah! Yes, welcome everybody to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys, one of whom was thinking that this episode would just be a regular episode, and I looked at my notes and realized I basically had a comment about every single team except for like two. I'll leave it to the listeners when we get to those teams to try to figure out who are the teams I just kind of had to shoehorn something in just to finish the set. I'm your host, Dylan Dubrowski, and with me, as usual, to look through every single NHL team in a fun order that he's come up with. It's the fantasy hockey robot, the Poobah prognostication, the IPP MVP himself, Brian Comp. Brian, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good, and I'm a little concerned that some of these, I'm not sure if I picked up. I think I picked up on the ones that you, the teams that you got like considered low stakes. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's just get through that and move to the next one. But I can't promise that my end of the prep was commensurately low or high, depending on your interest. So it'll be fun to see how that lines up. If there's a team where you're like, there's nothing to say, then I go deep on a player. We'll see.
Clearly
Also, a fun element of this episode is Elon is going to be introducing the players from each team in the order that we're doing, but Elon does not know the order until I tell him, which is going to be
a wild ride.
It's going to be really fun for all of us. I know it. So thank you all for being here and joining us for this ride, which will hopefully be both fun and interesting.
Yeah, that's the hope. We are proudly presented by Dauber Hockey, a fun and interesting website. Check it out. I love frozen tools. I use that to prep all the shows and to keep track of what's going on. And I'm ready, Brian, to get going. We need to stuff a lot of fantasy value into the next couple of hours. And there's a lot that happened last week. It was a busy week. You know what was crazy? On Fantrax in the Dynasty League, like, there was no games on Thursday, right? So Fantrax prorated the max number of games played to like lower. But actually, this was like a week where like most of the teams played 4 times. I was like, this is getting more games. And so in our Dynasty League that we co-commish, we just like said, okay, we're going to not prorate it. But I'm in another Dynasty League, which already has low ads. They were like, well, we're just sticking with it. So I had like 60 max games played for like a week where like I had to make a lot of sit-start decisions, which isn't that fun in Dynasty. But anyway, no one cares. All right, so with that prelude, let's dive in. So Brian, what is the order that we're going to be going through these teams?
So the order that we're going to approach today is we're going to go by goals for per 60 minutes. That just helps control, like it's basically goals scored. What teams have scored the most goals in all situations? I did per 60 minutes just to control for like
how many games they've played.
A couple games more, a couple game less than others. And it's really interesting, actually. This is going to be really beneficial for those who often have to wait till the end of the alphabet when we go alphabetically for us to get to the team you're interested in. It's also, by the way, kind of a ranking of shooting percentage, and I will point out any teams that sort of belong in a different place in shooting percentage than they do in goals for per 60 minutes in all situations. But this is the order, and I'm excited to do it. And I already dropped a hint, Elon, for what the first team is going to be. Do you want to take a guess?
So someone low in the alphabet, was that the hint?
Yeah.
Washington's been scoring a lot. Is it them?
Nailed it. Washington
right.
Shooting 14.5%, leading the league in shooting percentage in all situations, and also goals for per 60. So Elon, who do you want to talk about there?
Yeah, so Washington is now in this place where Ovechkin is out and they're dealing with that. And we talked on the last episode about how maybe like some players might end up being affected negatively by that. So far not so bad. Dylan Strome just continues to roll. He had a goal and 2 assists against the Islanders. He had a couple points against Tampa. No points yesterday against New Jersey. But, so far so good. Maybe this team will keep rolling along. And one player actually that I wanted to really highlight that I don't think we've talked about much on the podcast this season is Jacob Chychrun, who, at one point was like a stud. There was one season where he was pacing for like 55, 60 points and then had all the hits and blocks and shots, and he was incredible, especially the shots for a defenseman out of this world. Then, he went to Ottawa, kind of tailed off a little bit, was still like valuable in fantasy, but nothing especially interesting. And now all of a sudden this season, especially recently, the last 4 games, Jacob Chychrun has 7 points, 3 goals, and 4 assists. He is having some big shot games as per usual. I see 5s, I see 4s, I see a couple 3s. recently, his last couple of games, only one shot each, but he scored on both of those shots. That's obviously a nice way. And you know what? I don't know. I feel like we can't even just be like, well, okay, he's just getting lucky. Like, whatever. He normally shoots more. So I guess he really picked his spot for those last couple of shots. But yeah, we're getting to a point now where Chychrun is at 15 points in 19 games. It's a 65-point pace for a guy who's not even on the top power play. Very rare in fantasy to have. Like, this is like Devon Taves a couple years back in Colorado. Is Jacob Chychrun gonna keep this up? Do you think, Brian? Like, he's also playing for a new contract, right? So he's got a lot going for him, and I think the way it's looking now, he's going to cash in big.
I mean, if he can keep scoring at the rate that he is, Jacob Chychrun is going to cash in big. The thing is that I don't think he's going to do that. But first, let's talk about the scoring that Chychrun is not going to keep up. He's got 6 goals in his last 11 games. Since November 9th, Jacob Chychrun is tied for 12th in the NHL in goals scored. And that's a span of, 11 games, roughly. He has one less than Ovechkin in the same span, but Ovechkin's only played 5 games, which is crazy. Anthony Cirelli, by the way, shout out. In 9 games, he's tied for 3rd since November 9th in goals scored. Braden Point in just 7 games there, too. Good for them. But Jacob Chychrun specifically, 6 goals. Those 6 goals have come on 24 shots. 2 of them were power play goals. And on top of that, he's got 4 assists, 2 of them power play. And I think that's kind of the lead here, is that Jacob Chychrun has been seeing top power play deployment for most of the last week and a half after seeing none before. With Ovechkin out, Washington's going 3 forwards, 2 defensemen. So Jacob Chychrun gets to benefit from that. Poor Pierre-Luc Dubois wasting away on power play too. Oh, well. But Jacob Chychrun himself, 20% shooting this season. If you regress his shooting, you're basically back at about a half point per game. And I think that's more likely than not what we should expect from Chychrun going forward, especially considering in Washington, Chychrun's been playing 3 minutes a night less than he did in Ottawa and Arizona, where he was a half point per game player more often than he wasn't. So I'm gonna basically, we're just going back to Jacob Chychrun. It's possible like he can do 50 points, but I'm not gonna get too excited about anything more than that.
Would it change your mind, Brian, if I were to tell you that the vibe on Twitter, I recall seeing a tweet after one of those goals that was like, this guy's shot is insane. Like, it's unreal how incredible his shot is. So, I mean, look at that. I mean, more likely to go in. But obviously, you're looking at the career shooting percentage.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been able to score that high.
And the actual returns on his shot don't seem to be any, like, this is just a wave of, like, if he can do better, but, like, his shot didn't change this year. I as far as I know, he hasn't reworked it or whatever. And people have said he's had a big booming shot for the last several seasons. And sometimes that shot goes in more than it should. And I think that's what's happening right now. Also, Elon, I want to run this by you just because you mentioned Dylan Strome at the top. I was offered Dylan Strome in a trade for Connor Bedard. And I said, no thanks. I said, write me back when Ovechkin's back and healthy and producing. And then, like, maybe I'll consider it at that point.
Yeah, it's like that's a hard trade to eat just because like Dylan Strome was like a late round pick and you drafted Bedard in like the 4th round. Maybe the smart fantasy player doesn't think that way. Bedard has picked it up a little bit lately. Like Chicago had a couple high scoring games. I could see that going either way. But like to me, I'd rather just have the guy who shoots more. Bedard does have that capability of taking like 4 or 5 shots a game. I wonder if you could have asked for a sweetener, maybe make it worth your while. But it's Dylan Strome's. The fact that he's able to produce even without Ovechkin is really impressive, right? It's showing that he's not only just kind of like a passenger, but really like one of the star players on this team. So good for him. Good for Jacob Chychrun. Jacob Chychrun's profile photo, by the way. Okay, Brian. Okay, fine. You're saying the shooting percentage is high. He's done it before. But have you looked at how much of an athlete? Like, he looks like the type of player who should be the top player in the league. Like, he looks like more of an athlete than Connor McDavid.
Yeah. No, I remember when he was traded to Ottawa, like so athletic looking. Yeah. So it's nice when the eye test and the numbers all align.
Yeah. This is the eye test looking at profile photos.
Yeah. Okay. Next.
Where are we going next? All right. I'm going to guess, by the way, I just want to put it out there right now. I'm guessing Boston is going to be last. I'm throwing that out. Or Anaheim, maybe. One of those.
Do you want me to confirm now or later?
No, we'll find out in 2 hours.
Okay. Great.
So where are we going next? I won't guess every time, but I'm okay. I'll just throw it out there. You know, if it was just for like the last couple of weeks, Columbus would probably be up there. They're scoring like crazy lately, but I'd imagine overall in the season, it's not going to be Columbus. Carolina's been scoring a lot. Okay, I'll guess Carolina. Is it them?
You're no, they're gonna be next, but first we're gonna stay in the dubs. We're going to Winnipeg.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, the big news out of Winnipeg is, of course, that Nikolai Ehlers is injured, which is, a bummer for him. He's having a really good season. The Jets are playing today, so I'm just going to scramble a little bit to give you the most up-to-date info since I prepped this earlier today. But in the meantime, the Jets played Dallas, and they lost 3-1. So that's a shame. Obviously missing one of their star players. Looks like the lines got shaken up mid-game. Connor and Scheifele were playing with Velarde at the start. I saw a tweet saying that Cole Perfetti got up to that line, though looking at the overall data, looks like the large majority of the game was Scheifele, Connor, and Velarde. So that's something to watch maybe when the lines come out for Winnipeg's next game over at GameDayTweets.com. I'd say the biggest impact here is Ehlers' top power play spot has gone now to Cole Perfetti. I mentioned on Matchup Maximizer yesterday, as Winnipeg does play 4 times next week, that maybe Cole Perfetti could be a target. Obviously, yeah, you just want a guy generally on the top power play. His even strength line mates, not the most exciting, unless, of course, he goes to the top line. That would make a big difference rather than playing with Alex Iafallo and Vladislav Nemesnikov. No, shade on those guys. No points for Perfetti today. He did have a couple goals in the last game. But yeah, he has 17 points in 25 games on the season, which is a 56-point pace. It doesn't feel like it. Like, I feel like Perfetti's been someone I haven't been that interested to. He did have just a good run, like a couple weeks into the season. Aside from that, overall, it doesn't shoot much, doesn't do much for me. I don't know. Even on top power play, I'm going to tell you, Brian, I'm like not rushing to add Cole Perfetti if he was available. But I'm curious to know if you disagree. Trev, you can put that down. I'll be look at my first one. I promised before the show that I'm going to get every single one of my takes right in this episode. I have a feeling. So there's take number 1. I think that Perfetti is not going to be a guy you need to jump on, even on the top power play. And also, we don't know by the way, how long Ehlers is going to be out. It could just be a week.
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and say for Cole Perfetti, going up to the top power play unit, he's on a 56-point pace at this moment, and I don't see top power play really changing that for Perfetti. And that's because Perfetti has 7 power play points already this season in 20-odd games. And those 7 power play points have come despite the fact that Perfetti is generally on the second unit this season. So if I see Perfetti on a 56-point pace and I see that he was already producing on the power play at a rate we would expect from being on the top unit, then maybe Perfetti can continue producing at a 56-point pace. And that's the takeaway for me. If Perfetti doesn't get on the top power play unit, then I expect his power play production to regress on the second unit, and he'll be down around 50 points, I think, because I also don't see a substantial step forward in Perfetti's numbers anywhere, really. Like, it's a good season, another building season for Perfetti, but not a breakout IMO.
Yeah, like call me when the shots go up. Like, or if he's not going to be a guy who shoots a lot, then call me when he's getting like a boatload of assists. But otherwise, not too interesting fantasy for me. Like, you look at like Logan Cooley, for example, not a big assist guy, but the points are like piling in right now. It'll be fun when we get to Utah to talk about him. Obviously, these are 2 players in different leagues. I think it's becoming pretty clear. All right, Brian. So next up, you said we're going to Carolina. Is that official?
It's official. Make it official.
Okay, so one thing that is official is that Spencer Martin did not do well. He had the opportunity to take the net. He played every game. He played most of every game. He finally did get pulled in that second game against Florida, and they let Yaniv Peretz come in after 5 goals against on 28 shots. Oh yeah, Spencer Martin, if you grabbed him thinking, you know what, even if he's not great, I'll just take the starter on Carolina. You got the volume. You did not get the fantasy points. Every single game against Dallas, he led in like 4 goals on 19 shots. That's the thing. Also, Carolina did a great job. They even won a couple games with Martin in net. They won against Dallas, even though he had a 789 save percentage. They won against the Rangers with an 864 save percentage. Then, lost both of these games against Florida, where he stunk as well. Kochetkov is like apparently going to be back soon. Like, he was like even potentially going to play one of the games on the back-to-back. In the end, they gave them both to Martin. So I think you are safe to drop Spencer Martin. And I think even if it turned out that Kochetkov was like out for the season, I think you might still be safe to drop Spencer Martin. I think Carolina, if they were worried at all that Kochetkov wasn't coming back anytime soon, they would be scrambling they would have been in on that Wedgwood for Annunen sweepstakes. But anyway, yeah, he stunk. I don't even know what there is to say.
There's not much to say, except you got to think twice if Spencer Martin's on your roster, even if he's starting, which I think is what we said when he was stepping in. So, hey, there's one we got right.
I guess. I mean, I still grabbed him in Cupful.
I grabbed him in a league too, because what if I was wrong?
Yeah. Oh, well. Move on. I've already dropped him. I got Sean Couturier in that spot. I think it was for Sean Couturier. Or maybe I dropped him for Spurgeon. I don't know. We'll talk about both these guys later in the show. I have a couple guys on my team that I'm excited about. I think the future might be bright for not even close in the Cupful, my team. Anyways, but let's say something good about Carolina, because they're the third highest scoring team, as you said. Seth Jarvis is back from his injury, 5 points in his first 3 games back. He scored a goal in each of those games. Then Carolina did get shut out by Florida, so obviously no points for Jarvis there. But the lines were all over. I'm not even going to tell you about the lines in Carolina. There's no point. Jarvis was with Aho, then he wasn't, whatever. I'm curious, right? Here's my question to you about Carolina, because there's been a lot of these guys. Like Jarvis is coming out like crazy since coming back. We've talked about Natchez. Wasn't Natchez leading the league in points at one point? I think he's very close to that. And then there's Svechnikov. I think if we were to be drafting a new fantasy draft, let's say for the rest of the season right now, we got lazy. We didn't get to a couple drafts till now. We're starting next week. You're drafting for the rest of the season. I think we'd agree that Aho is the first forward off the board on Carolina. I guess the first player off the board. Who's next? Jarvis, Svechnikov, Natchez. I'm curious to know where your head's at right now with these guys.
Yeah. For all of Natchez's success this year, I feel like we haven't really gotten into what he's been up to. And what Natchez has been up to is 17 power play points in 24 games. We've never seen anything near that from him, or really anyone who's not an Edmonton Oiler or Colorado Avalanche player. And even there, that doesn't happen. 17 power play points in 24 games. Carolina is shooting 20% on the power play with Natchez on the ice. This can't continue. But also, I don't see any insane underlying numbers outside that on-ice shooting percentage for the Carolina power play. They are really outperforming their expected goals by about 33%, and Natchez has an 85% IPP on the power play. So, there's a lot of room for regression here, even though, team-wide, even though Natchez himself is doing really well, which is good, right? He's doing good. 5-on-5, it's not just on the power play that Natchez has been crushing it, though. 5-on-5, and also thanks to some friendly numbers, 85% IPP at 5-on-5 too, 13% on-ice shooting, and Natchez himself, 20% shooting at 5-on-5. He's been an extraordinary consistent 7 or 8% shooter for 4 seasons, so we know this is going to regress. He's basically doubling his 5-on-5 production from last year so far. And his shots and expected goals are actually down. So I don't want to burst a bubble here on Martin Natchez. What a heck of a start he's had. And I think at least with this, we can say the floor for Natchez, and this might sound crazy, okay, I know he's doing really well and he's on 130-point pace. I just want to say, Natchez, we didn't really know what the floor was because last year was disappointing, but I feel like we can safely say 65-point pace is the floor for Natchez, which is great, because Natchez as recently as last season was someone you had to worry about from time to time, and 65-point pace means he's out of the woods. The way things are going, though, it's hard to count out more, right? 70, 75-point pace, just not 124-point pace the rest of the season for Martin Natchez. Seth Jarvis, his pace looks about right to me. Elon, did you say what it is? I wrote that it looks about right, but I didn't actually name it.
I said what it was in the past 3 games. He has 5 points in the last 3 games. Overall, Seth Jarvis has 16 points in 17 games. So basically point per game.
About point per game. I think he can largely keep that up. And Svechnikov is on a low 60s point pace, which is funny, kind of, because Svechnikov is he's shooting more. It's happening. Andrei Svechnikov, after a low shot year last year, and we're like, why isn't he shooting anymore? Is back above 3 shots per night, almost 3.5 shots per night. And Svechnikov has been rewarded for shooting more with a 1.89% shooting percentage at 5-on-5, despite his highest shot attempt and expected goal rates ever. So we expect better from Svechnikov. He's basically his 5 goals of his 8 have come on the power play. At 5-on-5, he's got nothing going for him. Even his teammates shooting just 6% with him on the ice. This makes Svechnikov a great buy low opportunity. IMO, 62-point pace right now, shooting more than ever, or as much as ever at the very least. I could see him with just some normal regression getting up to a 70-point pace, and then maybe he can add a few more on top of that too. Oh, so the question was, what's the order I want them in? Well, I guess I'm going to say Seth Jarvis first, and then I'm going to say Necas, and then I'm going to say Svechnikov, just because like Necas's upside seems unhinged right now, and maybe this is a short-sighted decision, and Svechnikov's upside always seems like kind of capped in that 70 to 75 range. So I think that's what I do. But
Okay.
it's still hard for me to put Necas second. I'm going to be honest, but I'm trying to. I don't know if I'm overcompensating for a bias or what I'm doing here. But that's what about you?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's like so close. Like I feel like just let 2 other people take Carolina guys, and I'll take, or maybe I want all 3. I don't know, but like Nachas, he bet on himself. Like it's really cool how he could have taken like one of these long term 7 probably million a year contracts for 8 years. Like a lot of players have been getting, like Slavkovsky, whatever. And Nachas signed just a 2-year contract that's going to take him to UFA at age 27. So a big bet on yourself, hoping that he'll be able to cash in big then. And right now, it's looking like he's gonna, if he can end up challenging for the Art Ross, obviously, sky's the limit for what kind of salary he's going to get. So he's super motivated to, prove that he's worth this bet that he's made on himself. So yeah, I think that I wonder if he like trained extra hard in the summer. Like it's kind of hard 'cause when a player's doing something that's like we've never seen before. At the same time, it is kind of like you look at the lines. Like usually a player who's on a 124-point pace, you don't look at their line mates. Like in the last game, and I said the lines have been shifting around a lot. Natchez was playing with Eric Robinson and Jack Drury, which is like what, a 3rd or 4th line type of, so, but it's Carolina. They're weird. But I think I'm with you. I think it's probably pretty close. Natchez might just have this like next level that we haven't seen yet, but also we've seen a floor of like a 55-point pace last year. So it's really hard to totally just flip over and be like, no, he's a 100-point guy now. So I think I'm with you, Jarvis, and then maybe Natchez and Svechnikov flip a coin. But I think it might be flip a dice between all 3-sided dice.
Flip a dice.
What do you do? Roll a dice?
I think you roll.
Well, when I watch Survivor, they put the dice in the urn and then you take a piece of paper. That's what they do. They have a weird mechanism with dice. It's like they have a thing called the shot in the dark, which is a die. And then you'd think like they should roll, and it's a 1 in 6 chance of being safe. So you'd think, okay, so what do? Probably you roll the dice and see if you hit but no, you put the dice in the, it's like really weird how they came up with that. I feel like they missed that metaphor with the dice. But anyways, let's move forward, Brian. So that's Carolina. Where do you want to go next year? Oh, I guess I have to guess. You would think at this point we'd be talking about Edmonton or Colorado, like one of these high-scoring teams, but I'm assuming not yet for these powerhouses.
Not yet. We're gonna go from Jake Gensel's second last team in Carolina to his present team. Like he doesn't need to score to help Tampa be the 4th highest scoring team. By the way, we're ordering it this way too, because we figure the most goals means the most fantasy relevance, right? That's where the points are. So that's also a little helper piece for you all. But yeah, off to Tampa we go.
Yeah, so the news here, Kucherov is hurt. He missed the last game day to day. He had missed the second period the game before, but then returned in the third. So, we haven't seen anything to indicate this is especially serious, so I wouldn't be too concerned. So I feel like there's not too much to talk about here in Tampa. Like, I would have brought them up regardless if we weren't doing every team just to mention the Kucherov injury. But I'm not really sure. Like, I guess the main thing is just Brandon Hagel is insane. He's, like, too good. He now has 12 points in his last 6 games. He had a 5-assist game last week against Colorado. Just had a 2-assist game against Toronto where Tampa lost. They lost 5-3, but still Hagel is like just crushing it insanely. I'm in a dynasty league with a friend of the pod, John Reed. He invited me to be his co-manager. And like he was telling, like kind of not complaining, but like a trade went down in this league. So this is a dynasty league, right? So we have to kind of have a little bit of a different mindset. But it was like Brandon Hagel for like a huge haul. It was like Hagel for like a 2 first, a 2026 first, a 2027 first, Caden Lidstrom, who's like a huge, like big name prospect that was drafted last year, and then Kevin Korchinski, who's also a big name defensive prospect. So it was like a huge haul basically just for Brandon Hagel. And he was like, how is this possible? I'm just curious, Brian, like, are we at the point now where like is Brandon Hagel maybe just like this good? Like he's not that old. He's only 26 years old. Is this the kind of like asset, like even beyond this year, like it's worth spending a big haul to get this guy on your team? Like obviously for a win now, this team, it might just be that this team's like, I don't care about the future. I just want to win this year. But maybe Brandon Hagel is just like, I don't know, but this is also like a bit of a Martin Necas situation. Right? Like we've known Hagel was good, but he never had more than 75 points. Last year he had a career high, 75 points. This year he's pacing for like 95, 100. I was curious to get your heat check on like this trade in this random dynasty league. Like, is Hagel actually this good?
I think he might be. Like I can point out that Hagel has an 18% shooting percentage at 5-on-5 versus 12% the last couple years, but there's no big differences elsewhere. Although Hagel's attempting shots a little more, and that never hurts. He's added a half shot per game this season compared to last. And Tampa's shooting really well with Hagel on the ice, 14%, and Hagel's also doubling his usual secondary assist rate. So I've given you a few reasons why, even though he's shooting a little more, we should see some regression for Hagel. But on the other hand, he has no power play goals so far. When maybe, I mean, he shouldn't have a ton, but he should have a couple on the, I think, 10 shots. He hasn't taken a ton of shots on the power play, but he should still have scored 1 or 2. And I don't know, when I sort of weigh out those two pieces, I'm with you, Elon. I think Hagel, I think he could be point per game through the rest of the year. And I think it's time to like really adjust. It's almost like a Hyman type adjustment, you know, when we were like, oh yeah, like 50, 60 points. Oh, he's got more in him. Can he go to 70? And like, can he keep that up? And it's like, oh yeah, he can. And he does. So I think that's where I'm at with Hagel, 70 points with point per game upside.
Okay. So, 70 points seems to me like, yeah, I get, fine, good. I don't even know
that's
where I'm
less that's less exciting than you wanted me to say. Should I have just said point per game upside?
Well, right now he's pacing for 103. So when you're saying, so it's like upside, 100-point upside.
I think point per game is like a reasonably likely scenario. How about that?
Right. This sounds like something we might have said about Hyman last year, and then he ended up like even better, right? So this is like Necas. I think Necas and Hagel might be the two like huge breakouts from the first couple months of the season that it'll be so interesting to check back in another couple months and see if they've like continued to be 100+ point guys or if they fade back closer to what we expected going into the year. But okay, Brian, let's take a break and we'll be back in just a sec. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson. We are back. This is fun. We're talking about every single team. We've done like 4, 5, I don't know. Brian, we're going in order of most points per 60 we're going in order of most goals per 60. We've just done Tampa. We still haven't done Edmonton. We still haven't done Colorado. Like these are, like, you know, the biggest scoring teams in the league last year. What a disappointment that we're not there yet. But are we going to hit one now? Minnesota's another one I'm wondering when we're going to get to with how insane a Kaprizov has been. But okay, where are we going next?
Oh, we are going to stay in state, Elon. We're going to Florida.
Oh, obviously. Okay. Yeah. No surprise. They're a very awesome team, the defending Stanley Cup champions. It's fun that for a team that, you know, you would think is like super established and knows what they're doing, they change around that power play quite a bit. And they've changed it again. I think last week we talked about how Aaron Ekblad was on there for a game, and that was really interesting, and maybe someone to pause the pod and jump on. Last game against Carolina, where they won 6-0, Ekblad was off the top power play, and Adam Boqvist, who had been benched for a few games beforehand, he got in. He got on the top power play. Another name on the top power play, obviously the big three, Barkov, Reinhart, Kachuk, they were there. And then it was Boqvist, and then it was Mackie Samoskevich. Is he the rookie? Is he a rookie? Yeah, the rookie got in there. Good for him. And he actually scored a goal, and it was a power play goal. Sorry. And he actually scored a power play goal, which I feel like when you're trying to predict if a player that was surprisingly given an increase in deployment, like, is he going to keep it? I think one indicator that he might keep it for another game is if he scores a goal in that deployment. So I don't see why they would. They just won 6-0. Samoskevich scored a power play goal. My guess is he sticks there. Boqvist, I'll just say he's probably not going to stick there because he might get scratched again. Like, he's not someone I would bank on. And by the way, I will mention Aaron Ekblad, even without the power play, did score a goal in the last game, and he has 6 points in his last 7. Like, he's doing really well. 6 points in the last 6, I think, even. So I guess here's my 2 questions to you, Brian. Samoskevich, who is this guy? And should he be someone everyone is like adding to their watch list or potentially adding ASAP to get that exposure on the top power play? And also Ekblad, because before he got on the top power play, Ekblad was kind of doing nothing. He was in free agency in a lot of leagues. We said last week to jump on Ekblad. Now he's not in that spot potentially, but producing. So I'm curious to get our current vibe check also on Ekblad and whether we're still interested in him, regardless of if he's on and off that big top unit.
I'll start with Ekblad just because it's going to be short. How could you not just jump in on Aaron Ekblad? He's also taken 9 shots in the last 3 games, plus some blocks. And, points in 6 of his last 8. So I'd say regardless of power play status, I mean, we're naming Florida as a top 5 scoring team in the league. Ekblad plays a lot of time for them, and I know that hasn't always worked for him, but right now it is. So I think you go for it, and you hang on while the going is good, and we know it might not last, right? So you just keep that in mind for when Ekblad slows down, and hopefully we'll help guide you through that. But also, maybe he won't. Okay. Mackie Samoskevich. Yeah, he was a first-round pick, 24th overall. Basically your favorite time of the first round, Elon, in 2021. He's a second-year pro in the Florida organization. Samoskevich, quote-unquote undersized, 5'11", 180 pounds, just turned 22. And just for context, he was drafted 1 pick after Wyatt Johnston. So maybe that's a way to contextualize, figure out where you might think Samoskevich could or should be at this point. He had a huge point per game plus season in his last year in college with the University of Michigan in 22-23. Then, as a rookie pro with AHL Charlotte, Samoskevich had 54 points in 62 games. 22 of those points were goals. He was Charlotte's leading scorer by a mile. And this year in Florida, Samoskevich started with the big club. He started the year seeing double-digit time on ice, but then saw a big demotion at the end of October, and only recently has consistently been seeing more than 10 minutes a night again, largely thanks to some power play time, which you mentioned, Elon. His 4 shots against Carolina on Saturday was a season high. I'm going to watch that column for Samoskevich over the next couple games played, along with time on ice. But if he's there on the top power play, and I'm interested in someone playing on the Florida's top power play who has a scoring pedigree and has started seeing more minutes and taking more shots.
Right. Yeah. The thing is just like, will it last? Like Carter Verhaeghe, he's like, that's my spot. But of course, Carter Verhaeghe's doing fine, actually. He has 7 points in his last 5 games. I think we talked about Verhaeghe as a cold streak a couple episodes ago. Hopefully we said that, don't worry about it. But it's like, on one hand, I'm sure the Verhaeghe managers are like, top power play, please. But also, I guess you can't be upset with the results. He did have a power play assist in the last game. Verhaeghe, he assisted on an Evan Rodriguez power play 2 goal. So I guess he's doing fine. I wouldn't be surprised if before long, they're playing around, they're trying some different things. I wouldn't be surprised if before long, they just go back to the top power play they started the season with, maybe Ekblad there instead of Boqvist. So I don't know.
Yeah.
To say.
I don't know. I don't know how Florida doesn't seem to be in a rush to move Verhaeghe back up there. It's not like Samoskevich is someone who really should be getting a turn ahead of him. So I don't know. I'm starting to wonder about the Timo Meier-ish status here of Verhaeghe, and we'll get to Meier quite a bit later in the episode. But at least Meier's shooting. Verhaeghe has just a single shot in 3 of his last 4 games and on the second power play. We've been worried about him through the season. At first I thought, hey, don't worry about it. And then I started thinking, maybe we should. Then he stopped shooting. And I'm not sure Verhaeghe's out of the woods now. But with this recent hot streak, I don't know, maybe this is a overly conservative move, but if you can sell him for full value because he's rolling now, I think I would. I'm not saying Verhaeghe doesn't get there, but I felt more confident 3 weeks ago that Verhaeghe would get there when the shots were flowing and power play 1 time was abundant, and neither of those things have come back yet. And I don't know if I really want to chance the fact, the possibility that they won't.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. He does, like I said, he has 7 points in his last 5 games. 3 of those goals, 2 of those goals came in games where he only had 1 shot. So that kind of thing doesn't happen too often. So yeah, maybe now is a good time to try to really get a haul and a nice return for Verhaeghe, because yeah, if he stays power play 2 and not shooting that much, you wouldn't expect this production to continue. So yeah, it might be a good time to try to flip him. But of course, the deployment could change at any time, and his shots can go back up. It is kind of weird that his shots have disappeared. I feel like that's, you look at the start of the season, he had like has a whole bunch of 4, 5, 6 shots per game. Then you look recently, it's a lot of ones. He's not like a different person unless he's hurt. You'd think that maybe it all evens out. But anyway, Brian, where are we going to go next here?
Oh yeah, I should have.
You got to
that
be on
right.
top of that every time.
You're right. You're more on top of it than I am. Actually, we're going to a team that you thought we were going to get to later, but we're getting to them right now.
What, Boston?
No, it's not Boston. Well, you were like, Columbus has scored a whole bunch of goals lately, but like they haven't been doing that all season. Well, guess what? They they've been going crazy lately. But this is not their only crazy stretch. Like, this is like their third wave of crazy goal scoring this season. And all of it has added up to them being the 6th highest scoring team in the league, which we all definitely predicted. I remember at my draft being like, I really like Adam Fantilli, but I don't know who he's going to score with. Yeah. And then Columbus is the 6th highest scoring team. And Fantilli is, he's gotten in on a bit of it lately, but he has not been the central character through really any of it.
No, of course. It's insane. Like, and we talked about them last week. There's nothing really new to say, but like, even I prepped this afternoon. Then after that, there was a game. Columbus just beat Chicago 6-3 earlier today. And again, yeah, Sean Monahan a goal and an assist. Marchenko had a goal. Kent Johnson. We're still waiting for Kent Johnson to go pointless for a game this season. Like
I think he just got winger eligibility too. That's the one that got away from me.
No, Brian. This is what it's like. By the way, everyone being in a league with Brian, we have a dynasty league together that I assume Brian is like.
I'm so thrilled that we have him in dynasty.
Then he comes on the podcast like, "Oh, I'm so disappointed that I missed out on Johnson this year." And I'm like, "We have him.
He's crushing it on. He's our star player on a team we don't want to win, and I let him go on the team that I do want to win.
Like, we want to win eventually. I think we're pretty excited.
I'm thrilled for eventually right now.
Anyway, yeah. 5 shots also today against Chicago. Yeah, we all let Kent Johnson go in one-year leagues, except for the people who grabbed him. Congratulations, especially because you could have just stashed him in your IR for no cost. He was in my free agency, like available to stash at any time, and I just like had to use my moves on like, I don't know, Belinsky's getting top power play to Florida or someone stupid like that. So yeah, definitely regrettable. I don't disagree. Voronkov had a goal. Also, Cole Sillinger 2 assists. It's like everyone. They have a top 6 right now. So Chinnikov is out. Sucks for him to not, getting in on any of this. But in the meantime, Columbus has a clear top 6, and they are all awesome. It's like Johnson, Sillinger, and Fantilli is, I guess, the second line. Fantilli is the one who you said like hasn't been getting in on as much, which is surprising. He's probably the highest pedigree guy here. Then Monahan, Voronkov, Marchenko as your top line. You've had Monahan, Marchenko, Kent Johnson, Voronkov, Werenski on the top power play. Werenski's also going nuts. Anyone who decided to, take the risk, quote unquote, of his injury history and the fact that he's on Columbus, which looked like a scary team. If you took the chance on Werenski, you're laughing right now. So yeah, I don't have a question for you. I could be like, when is Kent Johnson going to go pointless? But like, he's great. He's like a high pick, and he's proving why he was a high pick right now. He might just be like a star. Like, add Kent Johnson to the Nachas and Hagel list. Like, by the end of this season, he's pacing the same. It's like he's missed a bunch of time, so we don't have like these like really extravagant numbers, but he's on the top power play. He's like higher pedigree than Nachas. Where was Nachas was a pretty high pick too. Kent Johnson was a 5th overall pick. I don't think Nachas was that high, was he? Let me bring this up here. 12th overall. Yeah, so Johnson, he's only like 21 years old. Maybe he's also going to pace for like 100 points this year. Who knows? I don't know. Do you want to do a deep dive on Kent Johnson for us, Brian, or do we just need more data first?
No, not yet. Like, it's just been like a handful of games, right? So the deep dive is I think emotionally can't do it yet at this point. There's a couple other guys that we'll talk about this show who I feel that way about. I'm not. I promise, I'm not robbing anyone of great content here. Yeah, Columbus, you said it, Elon. They're on fire. 5 or more goals. Now in 6 of their last 8 games, I'm trying to add their totals against Chicago on the fly here. 38 goals for in their last 8 games. That's a lot of goals. I think I've got
Yeah.
that right.
And Merzlikins, by the way, has been playing in net for most of these
It's
games.
almost
Like I feel
five per game. Yeah, and
yeah, they're scoring a lot.
he's
He's
been
getting
good. He hasn't even if they weren't scoring 5 goals a game, they still could have won. The way Merzlikins is playing in some of these games, they're also taking a ton of shots. Going into today's game, Columbus was averaging 33 shots per game. So it's not like they're just like barely scraping by with a crazy. I mean, they are shooting 14% as a team, but they are still getting a lot of opportunities for themselves. So way to go, Columbus, and congrats if you were able to grab one of the Columbus players for the nice schedule they've got next week.
Yeah. But Brian, just so you know, in our Dynasty League, we have Kent Johnson and we also have Cole Sillinger. I'm not sure if you're aware. So
Definitely knew
exciting.
that. Yeah, 100%. I
right.
don't know though. I'm trying to think offhand. Do we have any Vegas Golden Knights who are the next team we're going to? I don't think
we do. Now I'm curious. Did we just totally avoid the Golden Knights in that draft? Yeah, we don't have any prospects or pros on the Golden Knights, which is fine, I think. It's no one I'm especially regretting. Like maybe we could have gotten Barbashev late, but like you said, we weren't trying to win right now. But yeah, Barbashev has been okay. He's another guy. Throw him on the list, by the way. I'm like no one was expecting too much. Like Barbashev became fantasy relevant last year. It was nice, maybe a good later pick in your draft if he's going to be playing with Eichel. But Barbashev continues to scorch. He is now up to 27 points in 25 games, 10 points in his last 6. Pointless. Obviously, Vegas just got shut out by Utah. Before that, Barbashev just getting in on everything. This is without even top power play. So yeah, he's the main guy I wanted to highlight here. I guess the other name I should throw at you is that Victor Olofsson is back. He was out with his injury for a while. When he came back for this game against Utah, Olofsson was not put on a great line, playing with William Karlsson and Brett Howden, not on the top power play. Dorofeyev, William Karlsson are there with Hertl and Eichel and Shea Theodore. So after a 6-0 loss, I do wonder if maybe Olofsson gets back with Eichel, because I know that's where he was doing really well at the start of the year before he got hurt.
Yeah, that's where we want Olofsson. I mean, we also really want him on the top power play where he wasn't in the last game. He did have a full night's work, 17 minutes in Olofsson's first game back, but on the second power play and on a line with Brett Howden and William Karlsson. So we hope to see better for Olofsson, although I would hope there's a spot for him alongside Tomas Hertl on the Kolasar Hertl Nicolas Roy line. So maybe that's where he fits in, because Dorofeyev and Barbashev seem like they could stick with Eichel. So we'll see how that goes. But Olofsson, we need him at least on the top power play to see him try to realize some of the potential we saw from him going to Vegas. Barbashev is going wild at 5-on-5. Just one power play point, and the rest of Barbashev's production has been at even strength. And with just one power play point, yeah, he's an 89-point pace player. That's amazing for Barbashev, who's playing another minute a night at 5-on-5 compared to last year. He is shooting 26%, which is twice his usual number. Shooting a little more often, but not enough to get excited about, though. Barbashev's expected goals have taken a nice little jump into the kind of dangerous territory. His teammates are doing really well with him on the ice too, 15%. I'm not yet sure where Barbashev ought to land with regression. I want to set the over-under at 62.5 points, which is significantly less than the 89-point pace he's on right now. But taking less than 2 shots a game and having a crazy shooting percentage isn't a way to continue a 90-point or even a 70-point pace IMO. So, Elon, what are you saying? Over 62.5 or under 62.5 point pace the rest of the way for Ivan Barbashev? I feel like I've set it too low as I ask you.
Well, the thing is, Jack Eichel is that's the reason. No disrespect but to Barbashev, but Eichel, I don't think you're gonna say is too unsustainably producing. 118-point pace right now for Eichel. Obviously, Barbashev would be more exciting to keep this up if he was on the top power play with Eichel. Not there. I could see him being a 65, 70-point guy. Playing on that top line. So I'll take the over just for fun. Though I did promise I'd get every single one of my predictions right in this episode. That one I'm pretty on the fence about. So
okay.
I wish you didn't ask me that.
I'm glad I at least put it at a rate that made it a competitive question, a thoughtful moment in the show. Okay, we're going to see one of Tomas Hertl's former line mates. He's over in New Jersey.
Thought you were going to say his former team. I was like, wow, the Sharks. I mean,
No,
Granlund is doing
not
well.
yet. Although they're going crazy. We'll get to them. But actually, and I misspoke earlier. I thought we were getting New Jersey a lot later than we are, which is now 8th overall. Look at them.
Okay. I mean, the Devils are a team that's like, in terms of like players to talk about on the episode, like our studs are studsing. Like Heishier continues to have an incredible season. The guy I actually did want to talk about was Timo Meier, the guy who you said, like a Hurdle's former teammate here. He's doing well all of a sudden. He's got 5 points in his last 3 games, had a couple of assists against Washington. I'm seeing a lot of shots. We said on a recent episode, it looks like that top power play ship has sailed, and so we have to adjust our expectations. So then he made us like, look dumb. I don't know. Maybe some people were like, oh, I'm going to trade him. And then look at him like have a really good week. But it is just a good 3 games. Before that, he was pointless in 4. So I'm curious to know, is this a sign to you that Meier is going to start returning some of that draft value that people spent to get him? Or do you think this is just a blip?
I love the shots we're seeing from Timo Meier, but I'm going to go the same place I went with Carter Verhaeghe. And I'm going to say he's on a run now, but the things that we're most concerned about haven't fully changed. And that thing for Timo Meier is he's still not on the top power play. He's got he's got 2 power play points in his last 2 games, 1 in each, but not from the top unit. So to me, nice time to sell Timo Meier. His shots have been great, by the way. 35 shots in his last 7 games, 5 or more shots in 5 of those 7 games. So way to go, Timo Meier, for getting the shots going. But his upside is capped. It's not going to match the draft capital you spend. And if he's looking like he's performing anywhere near that draft capital, I would be starting to kick tires. And I already mentioned Andrei Svechnikov earlier in the episode, and I think that would be a tidy piece of business if you could move Timo Meier and get Andrei Svechnikov back.
That's a really fun one. Okay, I hope that we get that marked down and then look at the end of the year to see how that recommendation works out, because I think you could probably pull that off if you have Meier. So it'll be fun to see if it turns out that was right. I mean, your reasoning all makes sense. All right, where are we going next, pal?
Okay, it's fun because I get to try and do the segues here, and I don't have a good one for. Here's one.
Okay.
Scott Wedgwood was traded.
Yes.
So he's now been on 2 teams in the last week. He's also been on New Jersey, and
I recall
he's been on this other team that we're about to. I think this has been his only other team.
Who? Scott Wedgwood?
Yeah.
Is this like a trivia question for me now?
Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking about him for a long time. Where was he? He was on, he was on Dallas the last couple of years before he went to Nashville. I guess that must be it.
Going to Dallas.
He was on Arizona. I'm just looking at him now. He was also on Arizona.
Oh, Arizona. Yeah, my bad.
Okay. That's, that's fine. But yeah,
I shouldn't have said my bad. It wasn't like that much of a bad.
I'll be honest, Dallas is one of the teams where probably if we weren't doing one player per team, I might have skipped over. But here's a guy. I mean, just not because there's anything bad going on. In fact, actually, maybe now is a good time. After they've played again today, they just beat Winnipeg 3-1. Nice game for, Wyatt Johnston scored a goal. Jason Robertson had an assist and 5 shots. I wonder if some of these guys that sort of had slow starts everyone's like really annoyed about might be turning things around a little bit. Like specifically, I guess, Johnston and Robertson, who went super high in drafts. I think Johnston is on a hot streak right now. Let me bring it up. This is not something I prepped because I didn't realize he was going to score today. He has 7 points in the last 6 games for Wyatt Johnston. And then his line mate, Jason Robertson, is at now, not as much of a hot streak. He did have that 1 goal, 2 assist game against San Jose. And then after that, alternating 1 assist and then nothing, and then 1 assist and nothing, then 1 assist today. So J-Rob, we're still waiting on a little bit. Wyatt Johnston, another guy, Brian, we have on our Dynasty team. I'm not sure if you recall. So, he's doing really well and making us maybe not even need to lose so quickly because all of a sudden we have all these star players in the league like Kent and Wyatt Johns/Ton. I don't know. Maybe we can make a team name out of that. Can we make a team name out of the Johnston? Can you work on that? Johnson and Johnston.
Johnson and
That's
Johnston.
A company.
Yeah.
That's
there
a
you
name.
go. We've got it.
Right.
It's nice. It's nice to see some stars get rolling. One guy who's getting on it, Miro Heiskanen.
Yeah.
Do you know he has just 2 power play points this year, and
That's insane.
they came in back-to-back games on October 24th and October 26th. So it took him like 3 weeks almost to get his first power play point, and it's now been over a month since he last got a power play point. That's all Heiskanen's missing. I think it's been bad luck. Like on the power play, the Stars look good, but they're only converting on 10.5% of their shots. And so, like, this is something that might have affected, Robertson and Johnston somewhat too, although I found I've been sharing some concerns with their underlying numbers at 5-on-5. But Heiskanen, I don't share those concerns on. I think he'll just be back to where he was. Do you know, like, Miro Heiskanen was taken one pick ahead of Cale Makar?
Yes.
I forgot that. And do you know who was taken one pick after Cale Makar?
Was that... tell me the team, and I'll tell you.
Vancouver.
Pedersen? Yeah,
It was
Pedersen.
Elias Pettersson.
And then wasn't there like a really bad pick before all of these?
Nolan Patrick, second
Yeah.
overall to Philadelphia.
That's
But
a
it was
shame.
like he was in contention for first pick.
I know,
which was
but
Nico
I think that-
Hischier. Yeah.
But there was a reason why New Jersey passed, even though Patrick was the consensus, and I guess a lot of other teams should have passed also.
I mean, there was like a health, like, I don't know if we can say it was like a done deal at the time. In any case, a lot of great players early on
Great
in that
draft.
draft, including Vancouver's Elias Pettersson. I that was my segue to get to Vancouver,
Oh.
who rounds out the top 10 in scoring in the league.
Okay, good for them. And yeah, obviously it gets a little harder now with JT Miller out of the picture. They have gotten a reinforcement back in Brock Besser, who's been playing on the top line with Pedersen and DeBrusk recently. He had a 2-assist game against Buffalo. Aside from that, the other 3 games he's played, nothing, including today against Detroit. No points, but 3 shots for Brock Besser, but he is getting top line, top power play deployments. So yeah, overall, Besser, I think will be fine. And if whatever the manager is like getting frustrated that it's taking so long, then I think now would be a good time to get in on Brock Besser. In the meantime, Jake DeBrusk, geez, was doing nothing. I know you drafted him and ended up dropping him. How does it feel now? He just had a hat trick today, 3 goals and 1 assist for this win against Detroit, 5-4. Jake DeBrusk, a big part of it, getting top line, top power play deployment with the aforementioned Elias Pettersson, who's also doing really well. That's not the only good game, though. He had 9 points in his last 5 games. He's been scoring a ton. Jake DeBrusk, man, he's good now.
Yeah.
Is he going to last?
I don't know. He's got 8 goals in 5 games on 16 shots. 16 shots in 5 games is good, though. And 4 of those came on the power play. So DeBrusk is converting, as he should, on some really great opportunities. We've seen he can get rolling with confidence. He's rolling. Jake DeBrusk is rolling. I feel good about my call earlier in the season that he was going to be like a legit player this year, and I wish I had just held on. You know what? I not only dropped him, but I had a chance to add him again, and I added Jonathan Quick by like half accident instead, and that cost me DeBrusk this week, which cost me the matchup. Here we are. Everything's fine.
It's a tricky game.
I see this so everyone listening can relate, and I wish you all had a podcast and I can listen to you tell me about like the 1 or 2 like big mistakes that are really the only reason you're losing this week. But know that I see you. I feel you.
I mean, a guy I had on my fantasy team for a few games at least was Connor Garland, and I let him go. And he's also crushing it lately. 10 points in his last 8 games. Nothing today in the win over Detroit, which is always disappointing when your team scores 5 goals. But before that, Garland was doing really well. He's been on the top power play for a long time now. So currently with Patterson, Besser, DeBrusk, and of course Quinn Hughes. So yeah, Connor Garland, another guy that seems worth holding as long as he holds that top power play. One guy I was big on last week in Matchup Maximizer and recommended as like maybe my top streamer of the week was Kiefer Sherwood. And that didn't work out. He was top line, top power play at the time. Then Brock Besser came back. I should have. I don't think I took that into account. That wasn't very smart of me. So I need to be better at that with the impending outjuries. So Sherwood still hits, but yeah, now playing with Bluger and Hoglander and off the top power play, obviously a lot less interesting. But yeah, his hit line is still pretty crazy. Like he had a 3-hit game a couple games ago against Buffalo. That was his lowest in like a month. Like he's usually 4 or 8 or 10. So that's insane. But yeah, it looks like the points may be cooling off, which would make sense just because the deployment isn't there. Another guy, by the way, who's hot that I'll mention, Vancouver definitely was a team that I was planning on bringing up, as you can tell. A lot of guys going right now. Pius Suter, 5 points in his last 4 games. Like Kiefer Sherwood, the deployment isn't especially exciting. I guess you could say Pius Suter is playing with Connor Garland. The second line, I think you got to call it, is Suter, Garland, and Dakota Joshua. And Suter also getting that second power play. So yeah, how sustainable? He has 3 goals in 3 straight games. So you might be like, oh, what are the chances? He's not gonna score every game. But if you look at the shots, 4, 4, and 3 shots, the Suter is shooting more, and that's helping him convert. I don't know. What do you think, Brian? He's available to us in our dynasty league if we want to pick up. How old is he now? 28. Still, I'd want a guy that kind of like could help potentially now, but also fits our window for a couple of years. Is this a guy we should be thinking carefully about adding before we release this episode?
I don't know.
Forget it.
I thinking carefully is strong. He is shooting a little more this year, but he's already up to 9 goals when generally like he's pretty consistently a 15-goal scorer. Maybe he could get as high as 20, and he's already halfway there, a quarter into the season. But I don't know if Pius Suter is going to be able to keep it up with a 21% shooting percentage. 3 goals on Suter's last 11 shots. Like you said, in 3 games, that's still pretty good for Suter and more than he usually shoots. So I'm open to keeping an eye on things. It's kind of funny because we were like, man, when JT Miller and Brock Besser are out, Vancouver like is a one-line team, and all of a sudden you've got Pius Suter and Connor Garland doing their thing. Also, one guy who I don't think, Elon, I'm surprised you haven't brought up more often, Kevin Lankinen.
Lankinen, yeah, he's been good.
He's been great as a legit number 1 starting goalie on a good team. 909 save percentage this year, 63% quality starts over 16 games, only 2 really bad starts. These aren't like mind-blowing, incredible numbers, but they are solid, steady, helpful numbers. On draft day, I picked Artur Silovs with my last pick of the draft. I was so close, right? Like I was just trying to pick the right Canucks starter, and I got the wrong one. And Derek, shout out to Derek, who made a great guest appearance on Short Shifts. He picked up Lankinen when he saw he got the green check. I think it was the second game of the season, and he hasn't looked back.
Yeah, Lankinen's great. I've got him in one of my dynasty leagues. I'm in a few of them now all of a sudden.
You don't say.
Maybe one of the biggest bargains right now in the NHL. Like he's only making $875. He couldn't even get a contract. It was it was super late.
Why he was the last goalie signed is like a really great question for the KKB writer to ask.
Yeah. I mean, he was he made $2 million last year as the backup over in Nashville. And he did well. Like he did everything asked of him. He just barely got to play. And definitely the way he's playing now is he's going to make a lot more next year. He's earned it. He's one of them. This guy needs to make some money already. This career is going to run out. Next year, he needs to make up for lost time here. 29 years old. Let's go.
Let's go.
I better win that dynasty league this year because it's going to cost me a lot of money next year, the way things are looking. Though obviously it'll be interesting to see what happens when Demko comes back, which is just a 1-year contract. Lankinen can move on to a team that's finally willing to. He'll probably go to like Ottawa, who will trade Ullmark with retention to get out of that contract, and then and then give Lankinen like a 6-year, $6 million contract. That seems like something Ottawa would do. But I assume we're not going to Ottawa next.
No, we're not. We're going to the Canucks' opponents in the 1994 Stanley Cup Finals.
Okay, let's talk about the Rangers in just a sec. Ad break. Okay. All right, Brian, you have teased that we're going to the Rangers, and I will answer that tease by saying the Rangers have been teasing us recently with some really wild line combinations, trying to turn their season around. They've been a little bit disappointing lately, and maybe that's an understatement. But yeah, in the game against Montreal yesterday, here were the lines, okay? Kreider, Zibanejad, and Kakko. So Kakko, you think, is that top line, Kakko? Well, I don't know, because then they had Trocheck, Lafreniere, and Brett Berard. So then Panarin with Hedl and Will Cooley. So it's like 3 kind of, each line has a star player, right? Assuming we still call Zibanejad and Kreider star players. I think that if you were, just like listing the lines, I feel like most people would think it's like Panarin's obviously always line 1, which does that make Philip Hedl the top line center and Will Cooley the top line winger? Then yeah. So repeat it again. Panarin, Cooley, and Hedl. Zibanejad, Kreider, Kakko, Lafreniere, Trocheck, Berard. I don't know what this means. I don't know. Will Cooley is the guy we have to bring up because he's playing with Artemi Panarin. He's having an incredible season. We're up to now. So Cooley just had another assist against Montreal, bringing him to 20 points in 23 games. This is Cooley, spelled Cuylle, not to be mistaken with the Cooley on Utah, who has the more like the spelling that you would expect for someone named Cooley. But one thing that this Cooley has that the other Cooley doesn't have is a lot of hits. I was gonna say I was trying to think of a word like a boatload of hits, but that starts with C. To a cool load of hits. I don't know. What am I doing? This is more Brian's job here. But yeah, 94 hits in 23 games. This is maybe not at the Kiefer Sherwood levels, but if you look at the game log, there's some 6, 5, 4, bunch of 3s. So he's provided you there, and then also the points are consistent. And now this deployment, if he's going to play with Panarin. I mean, maybe that's like way too late, and I'm like saying something that to everyone else is like, yeah, I know, and he's gone in my league, and I wish I took him. Maybe he's like another Garland or DeBrusque that we, whatever, missed out on Lankinen. But yeah, if somehow Will Cooley is out there for you, I feel like you've got to grab him while he's playing with Panarin and see how long it lasts. But he was even doing well when he was on the third line. It was like him with Kakko and who I don't even remember. But anyway. Wild. And I don't know. There's a lot to say about the Rangers, but unfortunately I haven't said much, and I've spent like 3 minutes rambling.
Which should have given me a lot of time to prepare to come in ready with what I was going to say about the Rangers, and clearly I'm not, as I continue to stall while I look for them on my prep document. Oh yeah, Will Cooley. You already mentioned he's been playing with Artemi Panarin for a couple games now. This season, Cooley has scored 9 goals on 43 shots, shooting 21% on less than 2 shots per game, which we basically just said for, was it Suter and Barbashev, that like that sort of thing isn't really sustainable. But I will give it to Cooley. His expected goals rates are real nice, especially for someone who doesn't shoot a ton, which tells me that the chances Cooley's getting are high opportunity, and he's taking advantage, which is great. But I do think... And the big wild card is how long does Cooley stick with Panarin? Assuming that the lineup keeps changing and he keeps floating around the depth chart, I think 55 points is a safe place to expect Cooley to land, which is still great, right? Like, this is someone who, I don't know about you, Elon, but he's basically come out of nowhere as far as my radar is concerned. But hey, and if Cooley sticks with Panarin and Hedl, I am very open to seeing what he's up to. He was great in the OHL. He's a second-round pick, 60th overall in 2020, so late second round, 22 years old. And in his first pro season with Hartford, 45 points, 25 goals in 69 games. That was in 22-23. And last year he didn't have a role with the Rangers. He played 81 games, but he didn't have a lot of opportunity. I'm interested to see what comes out here with Will Cooley and what his upside really is, because this is not the usual path. Like, usually a second round pick at 22 years old, we're not talking about them the way we're talking about the way we've been talking about Will Cooley so far this year.
Yeah, also, I'll just mention quickly that the power play was also kind of wild in that last game. And by the way, this was their first win in like 6 games. So it was against Montreal, but yeah, Rangers have really been struggling, so that makes sense why they've been shuffling things around. The last game looked like 2 kind of even units for the forwards, like Kreider, Trocheck, Panarin, Lafreniere. Oh wait, no, sorry. Let me retake that whole thing. Let me also just mention. I'll also just mention quickly what the power play was for this last game against Montreal. And I should mention this game against Montreal was their first win in like 6 games. The Rangers have really been struggling, so we'll see if this win turns things around. Though obviously Montreal is not the toughest opponent. We haven't talked about them yet on this episode. Looks like they bumped. It was Kreider, Trocheck, Panarin, and Lafreniere on that top power play for a lot of the game, which means Zibanejad got bumped at some point for Lafreniere. So that'll also be something to watch. So yeah, we're talking about the good in Will Cooley, but there's also some bad in like Trocheck. If he loses Panarin as a line mate, that could be concerning. Zibanejad, if he loses top power play, that could be concerning. So yeah, there's a lot to watch here, and I think we're just gonna have to kind of see how things settle and if these new lines hold. There's this random guy, Brett Berard, who's a fun prospect who Brian we have on our dynasty team. Who if he's playing with Lafreniere and Trocheck, that seems kind of good. So yeah, I think that we just got to come back. Like Hedl, like Shams is saying in the chat, Hedl, if he's centering Panarin, it should be good. But he's not doing anything. I feel like this is really a team. Maybe short shifts. We can like offload this to like maybe this week someone could do a deeper dive on some of these guys, or maybe we need a few more days of data. But I'll be interested to see what the Rangers lines will be throughout the rest of the week. But I think we've talked enough about this team. Brian, where do you want to go next?
Well, the Rangers are the most recent organization that we associated Chris Drury with. How about we go to the first one? where he made his name over in Colorado, the
All right.
11th highest scoring team so far this season. We're in like, or 12th highest. We're in like the mid pack. So like this is really, we're at the team where it's like not even worth, or we're at the point in the rankings where it's not worth. We're in the mushy middle here. We don't need to
Okay.
name their ranks.
All right, so everyone is going to be kind of similar here, but yeah, Colorado is someone you would have expected going into the year to be near the top. But to be fair, they've had so many injuries. Nichushkin's been back for a little while, but now just recently, last couple of games, has gotten up to that top power play. We talked about it last week, where maybe there was some concern by a co-host on this podcast that maybe what if he doesn't get there and you have to be concerned. He got there, okay, and he scored actually a power play goal against Dallas. Not too much to show for his 22 minutes of ice time in the loss to Edmonton yesterday. But Valery Nichushkin, I continue to be very bullish on, and I think now probably any buy low window has closed now that he has gotten that deployment. On the flip side, on Colorado, Casey Middlestat, ice cold. And Middlestat has been also on that top power play. I do wonder how long it'll last. It's been Middlestat, Rantanen, McKinnon, and Chushkin. I'm seeing in the last game there was also a stretch where Lehkonen took Middlestat's spot. So we'll have to see. Pointless in 6 for Casey Middlestat. Are we in snoozer alert territory, or is it like you still have to hold as long as game day tweets shows him as being like going into a game on the top power play?
I think we're in snoozer alert territory for Casey Middlestat. This is just, and it's crazy because I was talking about him full season last time we talked about him. And I don't want to say that, like, I don't know how wrong we got it, to be honest. But essentially, I think the door was open to this possibility with Middlestat, who's taken no shots in 4 of his last 5 games, despite holding on to that top power play role. So, yeah, I think, like, you're probably snoozing on Middlestat right now. You can give him another couple games, like, especially in a deeper league. Like, in the Cupful, I think I'd wait another game or two just to see what happens, but you also don't need to give him that grace because it's very possible that he'll take like 1 shot over his next 2 games as well.
Yeah, Colorado does play 4 times next week, so I mentioned on Matchup Maximizer yesterday, if he has been dropped, maybe now's a good time to like grab him and take a shot on him, but not thinking it's a potential season-long hold. Maybe it's a stream, and then hopefully he impresses again, but maybe not, though. It is worth mentioning, Nathan McKinnon has only 1 assist in his last 4 games, so obviously when he gets going, some other people around him will get going as well, assuming Middlestat is still there playing with him on the top power play. While we're in Colorado, of course, I have to mention their trade. They swapped backup goalies with Nashville. Justus Annunen, who was supposed to be like their next like prospect, and with Grubauer free agent, I thought maybe Annunen would be like not their starter, but like maybe their tandem guy next year with whoever else they bring in. I guess they saw enough from Annunen to decide he's not the guy they want to pin their future on, and also maybe more importantly their present on, as they're going for a cup this year. And I guess they wanted a backup that they feel like they can rely some more on. And so now they've got Scott Wedgwood, who has been nothing too special this year himself, only an .878 save percentage. Though I guess Colorado just thinks that this is still a better option for them as their backup. Is there any chance that Wedgwood challenges for the starter role? Like, I see it as not. Like, I saw some people tweeting that, like, ooh, this could be interesting for Wedgwood. What if he has a good game to start? Maybe he could get more. I don't know. I don't see it happening. I think they're probably going to do status quo, but just a better backup for the games when they don't want to go to their main guy.
Yeah, and I think better is actually pretty subjective at this moment. Like Wedgwood has at least had some half decent runs. I think they've all been very short in terms of being a decent goaltender in the NHL. But looking at his performance versus expected Fenwick save percentage, Wedgwood has been about as bad as Georgiev this year. And believe it or not, versus expected numbers, Annunen has been substantially better than both Wedgwood and Georgiev at 5-on-5. He's just getting wrecked on the penalty kill. I don't expect Wedgwood to see any better or worse protection in Colorado or Nashville. He should see some more goal support. This to me seems like a change of scenery kind of move, but I see it as 6 of one, half a dozen of the other right now, swapping Wedgwood for Annunen. And to be honest, I think I'd rather Annunen based on what I've seen so far. But again, maybe just shaking things up is going to help. I bet the Avs wish they signed Lankinen
Sure.
earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about Nunez when we get to Nashville. I do have a thought
Yeah.
about him, but let's go to our next team here.
Yeah, you're going to have to wait a while to get to Nashville. Now let's go to the team that's leading the Central Division, that the Avalanche, Stars, and Jets. We've talked about the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd ranked teams respectively in this division. It's time to talk about the top team who is getting the goaltending that the Avs aren't. It's the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, and they also just made a trade this past week, sending a prospect, I guess maybe a higher pedigree prospect, or sorry, getting one in David Jiricek, who they just acquired from Columbus, and he's been called up. It's a very interesting situation right now in Minnesota because also just recently they've bumped Brock Faber from the top power play. It's been Jared Spurgeon manning the top power play with obviously the big guys like Kaprizov, Boldy, Eriksson Ek, and then Marco Rossi still there, by the way. And yeah, it's been Jared Spurgeon lately, and Spurgeon's been producing. He had a power play assist in the last game. Also scored a goal at even strength. Jared Spurgeon in a game against Nashville. Who won that game? Oh yeah, Minnesota won that game 3-2. In the previous game, also Spurgeon scored a couple goals against Chicago. Back in the day for keeping Karlsson, every year we were like Spurgeon was like our sleeper defenseman, like grab him late, top power play. I really thought this year Faber would hold it, but yeah, so I guess. But now we also have this complication of Jiricek coming in. But let's just assume for now, until we hear otherwise, that Jiricek's not going to just go right away to the top power play when he's barely been able to, make the NHL lineup over in Columbus. But yeah, are we at a point that Jared Spurgeon's like, pause the pod? You want to go get the top power play quarterback on Minnesota, especially since he's produced these past couple of games? And then the flip question is, how close to snoozer territory are we with Brock Faber, who like hasn't even been having such an exciting season, and now he's like pointless in 3 games. And if he's lost top power play, the only reason to hold him, I feel like, would be just hoping he gets top power play back. Maybe that's not a good reason to hold someone who's not doing anything for you.
Right, and wasn't doing anything on the Minnesota top power play either. That's Brock Faber, which is something we've seen Jared Spurgeon do on the top power play. Nothing in Minnesota. He is getting a crack here. The best power play production Jared Spurgeon has ever seen was 14 power play points over 65 games. So, you can give him a little closer to 20, but not quite 20 power play points in a season.
And that wasn't there, Brian. So
yeah, okay, it was a few years back. He saw 60% of the top power play time, but like that.
Who was the top guy there? Granlund at the time? I'm trying to think, like, who were his like big name guys that he was playing with?
Okay, I don't know how quickly.
Let's try to guess here. Patrons, let it in the chat here if you can guess some. When Spurgeon had his best power play season, I'm assuming Mikhail Granlund. Oh, Danny Heatley. Come on, get out of here.
There was a year. I don't know if Heatley was Heatley ever a leader in any category.
I mean, he not when Spurgeon was
okay.
There.
You want to know who led the team in power play points?
Yeah.
Hang on. It didn't display.
Click the thing again.
The way I hoped it would. No.
Just press it harder.
Sorry, it did. My broken brain. Kirill Kaprizov had 31 power play points.
Oh, he's been
Matt
around a while.
Zuccarello
Okay,
had 28.
Well,
Kevin Fiala had 17.
Right.
Eriksson Ek had 17. And Elon, guess what? Matt Boldy played 47 games that season. All right. So there was lots of quality on that top power play unit that Jared Spurgeon just could not get in on. So I don't know that I expect much different this time around. Elon, I might be, I'm at least, my interest is piqued by David Jiricek showing up in Minnesota.
Right.
Like that's, he's supposed to be offensively capable. He's apparently got a great shot and has not had a chance to show it. I'm just gonna jump in. I know you were probably. Do you want to introduce, or should I just go?
Well, I'll just say though. So fine. So Minnesota gave up a decent haul, like highlighted by a first round pick in this draft. I guess it's protected. Maybe it'll be in the next draft, but I mean it's going to be in this draft since Minnesota's going to do just fine. Yeah. So obviously this is a early pick. What was Jiricek? Okay, so I'll throw it to you. Tell us where he was picked. Was it second?
Sixth overall. Sixth overall pick, David Jiricek in 2022 by the Columbus Blue Jackets. Who have now said we've seen enough. And Jiricek has played for 3 different coaches in Columbus and has impressed none of them. Relegated to the bottom pair basically for a really long time now in Columbus. And now now Juracek has an opportunity. I think, like you're talking about Spurgeon on the top unit. I'm pretty curious to see if Juracek can, like, to me, there's an opening on the Minnesota top power play, and I wonder if Juracek can get a look at it. He's shown his offensive stuff in the AHL: 15 goals, 45 points, 60 points for Juracek, and 88 career AHL games played. So hey, I'm super.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
If I may.
Uh-huh.
I don't think you're right. All right,
Well,
I should have said it in a more articulate way.
What exactly do you think I'm not right about?
I don't think that Juracek is going to get the top power play like anytime soon. I think he has to crack the lineup. He has to kind of establish himself.
There's steps. There's steps. Like maybe he starts in Iowa. Like maybe he doesn't start with the bigs, but I think there's an opening, Elon. I think Minnesota has a top power play quarterback position open, and whenever he's ready and has paid his dues or cleared whatever hurdles the organization wants him to clear to get some playing time in the NHL.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Minnesota just invested in the guy. So I think
for sure. But I think long term, I think that I'm going to say maybe not pause the pod because but I think very hard. If you need a defenseman and he's out there, I think Spurgeon is someone to go for right now. Maybe it's not going to be a whole season thing, but I think right now it's hard to get these guys, right? If you missed out on Ekblad, like, oh, why didn't I get Ekblad when I have the chance? I mean, Spurgeon might be the Ekblad now from 2 weeks ago.
You're right. Let's not look past the. Let's see what's right in front of our noses here, okay? And that's Jared Spurgeon. So that's the tip here. Go get Spurgeon and just keep an eye on Juracek and how his developed trajectory does or doesn't change now that he's with the Wild, because he was stalled. He was going nowhere with the Blue Jackets. The 2022 entry draft, real interesting. Like a lot of guys who aren't making it yet, and we don't know when they will. That's the one where Slavkovsky went first, which honestly at the end of the day looks like it makes sense. Although I think it did at the time too. Then Nemec, Cooley, Shane Wright, Cutter Gauthier, Juracek, Korchinski, Casper, Matthew Savoy. Surprising, I don't know. Usually you would expect one of these guys to really jump out at you, and right now that guy's Logan Cooley, I think, from the group. And we're not going to Utah next. Oh, yeah, Slavkovsky. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I will mention... Yeah. I will mention for people who are curious about prospect talk, my sense is that the guy who was picked 12th overall, also by Columbus, Denton Mateychuk, had overtaken Juracek in their long-term vision of who their top prospect defenseman was. So I guess that made Juracek a little more expendable. Isn't that the year they also got Cole Sillinger? We had a lot of early picks in that draft, and he's looking good this year. So we'll see if Sillinger continues to, break out a little bit as he has so far. Unless I'm totally wrong and he wasn't picked that year. I know there was a year where they picked 3 guys. I thought that was this year.
I don't think it was this one. I think there's been a couple years where Columbus has had a lot of early picks.
Sillinger was the year before. My mistake. Okay, where are we going next?
Okay, let's go Minnesota. I mentioned their goaltending. Also, going back, Colorado ranks second in goals for in the Central Division, but they have given 14 more goals than the next worst team in goals against. The Blues and Preds have each given up 79 goals. The Avs have given up 93. And thanks to the great work of Philip Gustafsson, the Wild have given up 35 fewer goals in just one less game played. And boy, I bet Ottawa is wishing they held on to Gustafsson now. Yeah. That's where we find ourselves, and they're only middle of the pack in scoring, which they'll need to do better. They need to score more or give up fewer goals if they want to get out of where this funk they've been in for a few years.
Yeah, well, hey, Ottawa is playing right now as we speak. 2 periods done against Anaheim, and it's 2-2, so we'll see if the Sens can pull it out. Brady Tkachuk, a couple goals. He's obviously good at scoring goals, as we know. Tim Stützle, another power play assist. Batherson's getting in on it. With Ottawa, it's the guys that we expect to do well are continuing to do well. There's a random new person doing well out of nowhere that obviously we need to talk about. I'm starting to realize I say the word obviously too much. Brian, can you... I think I'm going to notice it myself. I want to not say the word obviously anymore for the rest of this podcast.
Well, now everyone's going to notice. I wouldn't have noticed. Now it's going to be a painful listen.
I need to come up with some good synonyms moving forward, because that's clearly a word that really jumps to my mind. But the guy we need to talk about in Ottawa is the guy who's been playing on the Tim Stützle line, Adam Gaudette. How is this? What? How did he get to that spot in the lineup? First of all, and then how has he scored in like what 4 of his last 5 games? Not counting today. Adam Gaudette has scored 1, and even one of the games 2 goals. He's not shooting a lot. Like it seems like there's no way this will last. But like I gotta bring him up.
Yeah, you gotta bring him up. And what you may or may not know is that David Perron plays for the Ottawa Senators.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I forgot that.
Yeah. And David Perron's been injured for a few games.
So he
even
was
though
the one.
he's been absent from the score sheet a whole bunch leading into it. But yeah, with Perron out of the lineup, I think there was enough of a shuffle for Adam Gaudette to get a crack up there in the top 3. Stützle and Giroux are one of the top 2 lines in any case. He's been seeing more ice time since Perron was hurt a few games ago. Gaudette's been, a 4th liner his whole career. He saw his first pro games back in 2018-19 with the Canucks, who drafted him in the 5th round. Now Gaudette is 28 years old and has 28 points in 242 career games. I think that's it. He's scored 4 times on 6 shots. He had 5 blocks for some reason on Saturday at LA. So that must have been nice to have him. But he's got 12 goals and a single assist this year in 22 games. And 12 goals ties his career high, which he scored in Vancouver in 1920 in 59 games. He's done it in 22. So we'll see what the future holds for Adam Gaudette, who's been a pretty good scorer in the AHL, but it has not translated to the NHL, and I'm not sure that it's about to.
These are some gaudy goal totals. Has the Ottawa Sun put that out there yet?
Gaudette the God. So Ottawa played LA. That's the easy segue.
Oh, wait, I did have one quick question about Ottawa,
sure,
if I may.
Yeah, okay.
Just you don't have to do a deep dive, but like I'm really surprised with what happened to Shane Pinto this year. I really thought he was like going to build on a really strong campaign last year when he came in halfway through the season. Pinto stinks. I guess I don't know. It's just the deployment. Like he's pointless in his last 11 games. Only 3 points in 16 games overall. I drafted him. Like I dropped him very quickly after I drafted him. I don't even think I played him in a single game before I dropped him after drafting him in the cupful. But I don't know. I'm just surprised, and I wonder if like as someone in Ottawa, like is the media talking about how Shane Pinto's a big disappointment, or is it just like he's just like maybe one day he'll get into the top 6, and right now if he's getting bottom 6 minutes and not power play, like what do you expect?
That's a great question. He's pointless in 11. He has 3 points on the season in 16 games with a big injury break between, starting off doing nothing and then continuing to do nothing. Definitely a disappointing season for Shane Pinto, right? We were expecting him to see a step forward, maybe even, he's on the 3rd line, right? Which isn't helpful, but I think that's part of the deal. That's why he's struggling, but also where he needs to be, just given the rest of the Sens depth chart. I think they really find value for Shane Pinto, giving them a 3rd line, essentially. He's 24 years old. He just turned 24 3 weeks ago. I don't think anyone's really running out of patience yet because we haven't seen his top end yet, nor have we seen him get an opportunity to show it off. But you would expect a little bit more from the guy, except he's playing with nobody at 5-on-5 and not at all on the power play. So that's a bummer for Shane Pinto. And
that's interesting.
There's always next year.
Okay, LA.
Yeah, Ottawa just played LA. That's one way to get there. Also, we can continue the Sens goaltending tree. Korpisalo
came from LA. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So what's going on in LA? Trevor Moore is day to day. That's just a little news item. I don't think it's anything serious. That he could come back anytime, from what I can tell. They went back recently to 4 forwards and 1 defenseman on the power play. We were talking about for a couple of weeks that they were going 5 forwards, which was good news for, I guess it was Laferriere had been there the whole season. It was Byfield who got a promotion to get to top power play. In the last game against Ottawa, they brought Brant Clark back, so that experiment is over. But Alex Laferriere was the one bumped from PP1, and Quinton Byfield got to keep the spot, which you'd think, good for him. And he had a power play assist in the win over Ottawa, so it was a 5-2 win, so you got to assume that's going to hold. Laferriere, like I think we've said about a few players now, getting bumped, like the Verhaeghe, he doesn't care. It's like, you bump me from the top power play, I'll still get points. He scored a goal at even strength. And Laferriere also scored a goal and had an assist in the previous game versus Anaheim. He also had 2 assists in the previous game versus Winnipeg. This is after he went pointless for a stretch, Alex Laferriere. And we said on the podcast, oh, probably it's time to move on. So obviously then he put up 5 points in his last 3 games. A weak winner for anyone who hold on to him or grabbed him out of free agency. This is a tough guy to peg here, Laferriere. Jeez. Ekblad also bumped off the top power play and doing well. So maybe we got to change the way we think about this. You want to grab the guy who's just been bumped from the top power play.
Yeah, I think that's a recipe for disaster in like small sample size. Edge case learning. What can you say? I dropped Laferriere heading into this week, and it was the right decision. You hear that? I think who was it? Who else did that? Matthew in the chat? Yeah, Matthew in the chat. We feel this together. And this is my guy, right? Like, I believed in Laferriere. I think I held on to him for a couple games longer than most others did. But then he had 1 shot in 3 games, and that's how he ended a 6-game pointless streak. So I was like, okay, good times. See you later. And now Laferriere has 5 points and 8 shots in his last 3 games. Good for him. That's all I can really say.
Yeah. And look, but if he's going to stay off the top power play, probably you can't expect this to keep up. You wouldn't think so.
Yeah,
though. I guess
no,
Laferriere does defy logic sometimes. Even strength, he's been playing with Fiala and Deneau. Not a bad line, getting lots of time. But yeah, I would expect more like 40, 50 point pace from that deployment. But I guess we'll see. Maybe he can be 60.
Maybe he can like outperform a little bit, but 60 would surprise me. And I think you don't want to consider Laferriere outside of a streamer spot in your lineup.
Okay. Also, let's give some quick kudos to Andrei Kopitar. In his last 5 games, 4 of them have been 2-point games. Incredible. Age has no effect on Andrei Kopitar, so kudos to him. All right, Brian, where are we going to go next?
We're going to keep the Sens goalie tree growing.
Okay.
And we'll go with where Matt Murray went after Ottawa, which is the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh, yeah. That's wild, though. We haven't talked about Toronto until now. They were supposed to be way up there, but maybe it'll help that they have Matthews and Matthew Nyes. That's maybe an episode title there, Brian. You could work in the 2 Matthews and Matthew Nyes. I don't know. Okay, so they're back
Johnson and Johnston and Matthew and Matthews.
Yeah. So they're both playing on the top line. I mean, this was against Tampa Bay. The Leafs won that game pretty handily. It was Matthew Nyes, and William Nylander on the top line. They had to keep Tavares and Marner together. So Marner was playing with Tavares and Pontus Holmberg. Doubt that will last. The top power play was 5 forwards in this game. Tavares, it was only 1 power play, it looks like. Tavares, Nylander, Marner, Matthews, and Matthew Nyes. So I think, by the way, this game, I'll give you some stats. I don't know. Matthews had a couple assists, so welcome back. A couple shots. I'm sure those will go up as time goes on. Matthew Nyes, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 shots. Marner had 2 assists. Nylander had a goal. Tavares had a goal. So I think everyone here on the top power play is good, and I think Matthew Nyes is the one who's like especially interesting as someone who you got potentially late in drafts. I doubt he's available in free agency in any serious leagues at this point, but top line, top power play deployment, playing with Austin Matthews. This is looking really good for 2nd round pick back in 2021. Matthew Nyes' stock continues to rise, and now it's at the highest it's ever been. I think with this deployment, 4 points in his last 4 games. Welcome back.
Welcome back. I have very little to add about Matthew Nyes. Like, this is where we wanted to see him, and this is what we wanted to see from him as he was there.
I guess next we just got to watch for Matthews, the other Matthew, the more notable Matthew, Austin Matthews. Let's get some goals now. He's got a lot of catching up to do to get that Maurice Richard trophy.
Just go get some goals. Like, it's not asking a whole lot for Austin Matthews to go get some goals.
Usually not.
Okay. The next on the list, I don't have a segue, so we're just gonna go to Edmonton. Zach Hyman's I don't know what the interesting segues are. Okay,
Toronto, Zach Hyman, yeah, that works.
Okay, like I don't know if it's like the player in common. Like there's a lot of different ways to get at it.
Matthew Nyes benefiting from playing with Austin Matthews previously. Zach Hyman benefited from.
There it is. That's why he's the sultan of the segue right there.
Okay.
You know what? Edmonton stands out here in this ranking. We're down at the 17th highest goal scoring team. Gosh, Elon,
we're
we're
only
like
halfway
barely
through the
halfway.
show.
We need to pick up the pace
Okay.
and not
Who
dwell on
cares
the
about these
segues
teams?
here.
They don't even score goals. They're not important for
So
fantasy.
Edmonton is alone here at 17th because they're shooting just 9% this season. The next best team that's shooting 9% or less is Pittsburgh, down at 24th. So Edmonton is basically around a lot of other teams shooting roughly 10, 11%. And that's pretty great that they're still 17th and hanging in there. And the best is yet to come for the Oilers, I think. And I could see them cracking the top 10 by the time this season is done.
Also, Brian, I have a huge correction I have to make before I go to Edmonton. Trevor Moore, I said was day to day. That's over. He played in that game against Ottawa, and he had a goal and an assist, and was on the top line. So I don't want to go re-record that part, but thank you, Matthew, in the chat for that correction. It was Moore with Campaign Kopitar, which are the two players on LA you definitely want to be playing with. So he's another guy that's tough to peg. Obviously, like Laferriere, he continues to produce even when you're surprised with the deployment, and that's not a place you expect to produce so much from. But obviously, it's really great. Oh, I said obviously. Okay, well, now I'm really falling apart here. I got the wrong info, and I'm saying the words I'm not supposed to say, like Pee Wee Herman here. Okay, Moore top line looking good. He's back from his day off. Edmonton, McDavid is very good. He might catch up in the Art Ross race. He missed a couple games. He started a little bit slow, but Kaprizov is at 38 points going into today. McDavid 31 in 21 games, so 7 points back. 21 points in the last 10 games for Connor McDavid. So he's like the T1000 chasing all the guys ahead of him. I think odds are McDavid gets that Art Ross. If I were to be setting those, placing those bets, then. A couple other guys I'll mention quickly in Edmonton. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, goals in 2 straight. He had a really rough start to the season. But goal and assist versus Colorado. Still only at half point per game on the season. So maybe RNH is finally turning things around. I don't think anyone's expecting anything too crazy. But hopefully he can go back to being like a 65, 70-point guy. I feel like that's what we would have assumed the floor would be. And then also got to, of course, mention, and of course we've got to mention Vasily Podkolzin, goals in 3 straight games. Obviously, it's nice to get dishes from Leon Draisaitl. Looks like that was a really good signing by the Oilers. And, maybe someone you need to start considering in fantasy while he's playing with Draisaitl, which seems like it's been a pretty long-term thing at this point.
Yeah, it has been for Podkolzin. I don't know that he's really capitalizing so well. He has 3 goals in the last 3 games. And those have come on 4 shots. So like you said, Elon, it helps to get dished too by Leon Draisaitl, both because of his skill and capacity to distract other teams' defenses. But I'm going to still, good guy to stream. All right, I have Victor Arvidsson too, sitting on my IR. He was supposed to be back for me 2 weeks ago. I assume he'll be back someday, and that might shake things up. Also, what might get shaken up, Kasperi Kapanen on the top line. I think we'll at least just point it out again. Top line, 2 points in 3 games. He doesn't shoot, but he hits, and he plays with McDavid and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who now has 2 goals on 7 shots. 3 straight games with 3 or more shots. Both goals for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins came at 5-on-5, where he's deserved better in most ways, although his line has been surprisingly low yield in expected goals to date. But I think still it's been just lots of bad luck, and sometimes you just need a spark to turn that around. And I know I said that about Marchessault last week, and that hasn't, the spark died real quick. I'm hoping with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins he can do better. If you want to live dangerously, I wouldn't do it. I was going to say you could, we talked about Verhaeghe and Timo Meier as guys on a roll, who it might be a nice time to just move on from them. I think maybe you can get RNH plus. I wouldn't just settle for RNH.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'll mention, by the way, in Edmonton, the news for Zach Hyman, the latest tweet was that from Tony Brar, the potential is he might play on Tuesday in Vegas. So it might be next game for Zach Hyman. I assume he's going to take that Kasperi Kapanen spot on the top line. Arvidsson, on the other hand, we still don't have a timeline. He was so close to playing a game 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and he was
that's Arvidsson.
Close to playing a game by the end of this week, and it still hasn't happened. You know who we're not talking about in the top 6, even with all these injuries? Jeff Skinner.
Stinks.
Yeah, who we talked
Maybe
about
the Oilers,
more regularly
a little bit
when he was in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm. He's just looking like he's not long for this league at this point. Like he only signed a 1-year contract, I believe, after getting bought out from the Sabres. So if he can't crack the top 6 in Edmonton, I wonder what the interest will be and if he's going to have to get like a PTO or something. But it's still time to turn the season around. We'll see. Where are we going next, pal?
Oh, Buffalo, as a matter of fact. It was a very subtle throw to Buffalo. Someone in Buffalo is doing a pretty good Jeff Skinner impression lately, and it's not, a lot of us aren't happy about it.
Yeah, the thing is, since I don't know the order, you can't just do the subtle throw and expect me to roll with it. So, yeah, just add in the part where it's like, Elon, now talk about them, please. And then I'll make sure to roll with you. Or maybe I could just try to be more paying attention.
Well, just know if I'm going to name another team.
Why did you randomly bring up Buffalo? I just thought you were making an interesting point about Jeff Skinner. But okay, I should have put it together.
But why was I even talking about Jeff Skinner?
Okay, Tage Thompson is back. Great. Pointless in 3 games. Aw. But he's taking a lot of shots. Great. But Buffalo's been shut out in 2 of the last 3 games. Ah. So I don't know. I assume it'll be fine. And I assume that Buffalo will start scoring goals again. But obviously this has been can't do it. Brian, give me a word. But okay. I need to push forward. I'll figure this out for next week. Now I'm in my head. Tage Thompson will probably be fine since he's taking a lot of shots. One guy, though, I know a lot of people are really concerned about is JJ Peterka, who was also cold before this recent stretch of Buffalo getting shut out all the time. Peterka is now pointless in 6 games. Shots aren't that high. He's kind of alternating between taking 1 shot. He has a couple 4-shot games and then sandwiched in between 1 and 0-shot games. So, yeah, I just got a message from a friend being like, tell me that I don't have to drop JJ Peterka because that would disappoint me. So it's like, are we? I guess I asked you snoozer alert. Who was the player I asked you recently about snoozer alert? And you said, yeah, I think it is maybe time. Oh, Middlestat. Are we in a similar situation with Peterka, or do you have a longer leash here?
Well, I mean, is he going to, like, Laferriere? I've been trying to make the analogy all season long, right? Peterka's either Laferriere East or Laferriere's Peterka West. Now Peterka is on a long pointless streak. And I guess I don't love that Peterka, I see a lot of reasons like I did for Laferriere that I should let go. Some things that were going well for Peterka are no longer. I don't love that Peterka hasn't been a plus player since 11 games ago, nor do I love that he has taken, and like there's a lot of minuses in there, just like 2 zeros. So he's been minus way more often than not, basically consistently a -1, which isn't a huge deal, but like it piles up after a while. Nor do I love that Peterka has taken a single shot or none at all in 7 of his last 11 games. That was another telltale sign for me to drop Laferriere. Like Laferriere, I'll consider Peterka a snoozer at my own risk. He's still line 1, power play 1, and that's something Laferriere didn't even have going for him. So, Elon, I'm not going to say. I know Middlestat is also on the top power play, but I think he plays a smaller role on that top power play than JJ Peterka plays on the Buffalo power play. So for that reason, I am not going to give up on JJ Peterka just yet.
Yeah, I am with you. Though I guess the lesson from this episode has been like he'll probably only get going once he does get bumped from the top power play. But I kid. I don't think that's going to happen, and I would love if Peterka could get dropped in some of my leagues. Maybe it's like, a bit of a stumbling block here, but I think that he's going to be the type of guy that if you do drop him, you're going to regret it at some point in the future. Maybe like Jake DeBrusk, who we talked about earlier. I could see a turnaround like that coming at some point. But of course, maybe not. That's why he's getting dropped sometimes. But I feel pretty decent. I'm putting it on the line. Like I said, I'm not going to get anything wrong in this episode. So that's another one. I feel pretty confident that Peterka is going to be worth holding on to, and you'll be happy you either held on, or if he does get dropped, you'll be happy that you dropped some fab to make sure that you can capitalize when he gets dropped by someone else.
Let's go to a team where we're surprised at how many players are worth holding on to, and that list grows. In San Jose, we were thinking that like Tyler Toffoli, is that the one guy, that Jake Wallman? Are those the 2 rosterable Sharks?
I mean, I expected Celebrini to be...
Sure. Yeah,
okay.
But coming into the season, I think this was even like pre-draft. What were you going to do? Did you really want any of these guys? And now it's like you can't get enough of them.
It's like Columbus. They're Columbus West. over here in San Jose. A bunch of guys who no one was expecting going off. Mikhail Granlund missed a couple of games, came back and was demoted, which you'd think that's no fun. Came back to play with Klim Kostin. It's a hard name to say 10 times fast, probably. And Will Smith. And Granlund did just fine. He doesn't care what line he's on. He's just going to point. He had 4 points in the 2 games versus Seattle on Friday and Saturday. The Sharks won both of those games, by the way. Not a good look for Jeremy's from short shifts, Seattle Kraken, losing twice to the Sharks. Celebrini is doing really, really well. 7 points in his last 4 games. And right alongside is rookie Will Smith, who has 7 points in his last 4 games. And like I just mentioned, playing with Mikhail Granlund in the most recent game. The top power play, for what it's worth, was Granlund, Celebrini, Wenberg, Toffoli, and Jake Wallman. So no Will Smith there. But regardless, yeah, you can't ignore goals in 3 straight and 7 points in his last 4. How quickly should people be jumping on Will Smith? Or is he another Adam Gaudette in your mind?
I don't know that he's quite an Adam Gaudette. He's not a 28-year-old career fourth liner who's been to 4 organizations. His pedigree is quite different, and he's at a very different point in his career trajectory. So I think for San Jose, I'm going to say, I think what you expected me to say about Columbus, which is like they are on a scoring heater. And to be specific, the Sharks have 22 goals in their last 4 games. That accounts for almost 30% of their total goals scored this season. The team is shooting 20%. They're 3 for 10 on the power play. And it's been fun for all these Sharks. It has been a lot of fun. Thing is, I think the fun is going to come to an end, and I don't think that's such a bold prediction to make. I'm looking at the schedule coming up. They've got a long Eastern road trip. They're seeing Washington, Tampa, Florida, Carolina, Winnipeg, and then they're seeing Colorado, Edmonton, Vancouver. Like, this is like their next 12 games are basically all against teams that we covered in the first 10 teams of this episode, which means they might get scored on a lot, which means they might have a lot of opportunities to score back, but I'm going to guess more likely than not they go back to not scoring so many goals that every player on their roster becomes rosterable.
Okay, fair enough. Still, at the same time, it's hard to ignore someone like a Will Smith on a heater like this. So maybe you jump for a little bit until he cools off if you want to play that way. Jake Wallman, by the way, back on the top power play, like I mentioned. He had 2 goals and 2 assists in those 2 games versus Seattle, up to 7 points in 5 games for Wallman. So you may be thinking, oh, too bad for Liljegren. Nah, he's still got a 4-game point streak. So yeah, everyone in San Jose is having fun right now. Even Klim Kostin, who I mentioned before, obviously a nice spot, certainly a nice spot centering Granlund and, or is he the center? I don't even know. Costin's playing with Granlund and Will Smith, like I said. 1 goal and 1 assist in his last. Wait, that's not right. I didn't write it. Kostin. Sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, 4 points. I didn't write it down here. 1 goal and 3 assists in the last 3 games. Okay, sorry about that. I'll just go back to him. Even Klim Kostin, who I mentioned before, who's been playing with Granlund and Will Smith, he's been going off a little bit. 1 goal and 3 assists in his last 3 games to go along with 12 hits also in those last 3 games. Look, like, I'll just say, if you're in a bangers league where hits are valuable, you know you're getting those hits. And then if he's playing with Granlund, I like it, but who knows how long it'll last, of course. But deep enough league, maybe we're even looking at a Klim Kostin. So that's where we are with San Jose right now.
Yeah, if you don't add Clem, that might end up costing you the matchup in a hits league.
Good one. Okay.
All right. Utah's next, Elon. Do you know, I thought Utah might be the geographically, this is my American geography, the geographically closest team to San Jose. Or sorry, the San Jose was the geographically closest team to Utah.
I would say Vegas is close to Utah.
Yeah, you got it. Vegas, I think Denver might also be in the mix. Anyway, we're in Utah now.
I once went on a vacation to Vegas, and then we took a side trip to go hiking in Utah, and it was just like a drive. So
yeah,
that's how
there's actually a place where you can, like, it's the 4 corners. You can touch Utah, Arizona, Nevada, and California, like all at the same time.
Well, I guess Clayton Keller and his friends touched Arizona and Utah recently, but now they are in Utah. And the guy I wanted to bring up here, Logan Cooley, is hot right now. 6 points in his last 4 games. He's been shooting more. I feel like at the start of the year, it was pretty obvious that you would go with Genther over Cooley if you were comparing their two young studs, just because Genther was on the top power play. But like we've mentioned, Cooley has jumped up to that top power play. Barrett Hayton is not there anymore, so it's been Keller, Schmaltz, and then Genther, Cooley, and Sergachev. So I just think that Logan Cooley, and then even still we were like, well, but you still want Genther more because Cooley doesn't shoot very much. But now I kind of feel like they're closing in. And so I'm curious to know, rest of the season, is it still like for sure? Maybe this is like an arbitrary question, but just for fun. Like if you were choosing between Genther and Cooley, at this point, maybe you start considering Cooley. Cooley's, by the way, up to 20 points in 24 games overall on the season. That is a 68-point pace and aggressively climbing. This is a guy who a lot of people thought maybe should have gone first overall when Montreal took Slavkovsky. And he's really starting to break out big time here in his second season. It's too bad, actually. He played, I don't know, in his second season in the league.
Yeah, but first, don't sell Jake Gunther short. He's been like really like he had a dry spell, as did everyone in Utah. He has been on fire lately, and it started.
Yeah,
I think we all probably had Gunther on our bench on like it was a busy Monday.
I'll just correct you, and you can start it over. Sorry, you said Jake Gunther, and I was thinking I should.
Isn't that what I'm supposed to say?
Dylan Gunther.
Oh,
Jake Gunsel.
Okay. So I'll just start over. Thank you. Okay. First off, I don't want to sell Dylan Gunther short, Elon. He's been incredible lately. I think we all had Gunther on our benches on that busy, I think it was a busy Monday or Saturday, I don't know, when he had 2 goals and an assist, 3 points, 2 power play goals. I was mad that I had him on my bench, but not again. Sometimes you make the right decision and it just doesn't work out. So that would have been it because he was cold heading into that. He hadn't scored much for a while. He had like 2 goals in his 15 prior games. Then he has 2 goals since then. The points keep coming. So now Dylan Gunther's up to 7 points in his last 5 games. Doesn't have any shots so far tonight against Vegas, but he does have an assist. So way to go, Dylan Gunther. But
why am I pitting these two kings?
I don't know why. I don't know why you did that.
Just good for Utah. You have 2 awesome young players,
good
including
for
Gunther.
Utah. Olivia Rodrigo, shout out. Okay, what were we talking about? Logan Cooley.
We were done.
Goodness. 3 goals on his last 9 shots, but a pile of assists and a lot of 3-shot games for Logan Cooley. Played a season-high 23 minutes and 13 seconds against Montreal this past week, the team that should have drafted him. Just joking. But big minutes for Cooley. Top power play, steady shots on a 68-point pace despite like low-end power play deployment to date. I think Cooley is just about here. Expect some regression, though. 14% on-ice shooting percentage at 5-on-5, and his on-ice expected goals numbers don't look great, but I could see Logan Cooley, and I don't know we could have said this a month ago, being rosterable straight through the season, or at least more often than not. And I think I'd put the odds more likely to be rosterable straight through the season, maybe with some patience through a couple dry spells, but I think he's there. There was a team in my couple division who blew their fab like $73 on Cooley when he wasn't doing much, and I feel like they must be feeling pretty good about it now, assuming they held on to him, which I think they did.
Yeah. The thing is, like, there might be some regression based on the numbers you've seen so far, but also he's like 20 years old, so there might also be some positive regression in terms of skill and improvement. I don't know how. Like, when does skill improvement usually happen? Because like usually players are better when they're like 22 versus 20. Does that happen throughout the season, or is that an off-season thing? That's a good question, right? That we don't know the answer to.
KKB writer.
I don't know. Because he's going to get better. He's not at his best at 20 years old. Is he going to get better in a month? Because that would make up for some regression in some on-ice shooting percentage or whatever. But anyway, food for thought, Brian. I don't know.
Thank
Where
you.
are we going next?
Thank you. I love having food for thought. Well, let's go to the team that should have drafted Logan Cooley first overall. Just kidding. Still, I promise. It's not a funny joke for Habs fans, I'm sure. Because they're watching Slavkovsky not get a showcase spot for a long while now. Elon, if you have Slavkovsky, how much longer are you waiting on him,
Yeah.
like with him in your lineup. Is he snoozing yet? Like he hasn't been completely silent, but I don't know that he's the straight up for sure rosterable. Like he might be closer to like Laferriere territory than Paterka, if we want to make a little comparison there.
I mean, Slavkovsky is still top power play, which is good. But you're right that he hasn't been playing on the top line lately for Montreal. In their game versus the Rangers, it was they changed it up again. No, it was new hook with Caulfield and Suzuki, and then Slavkovsky played with Gallagher and Dvorak. So yeah, you don't want to see him there. We thought that it was just going to be for sure Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky. Look, like Slavkovsky's still super young, also 20 years old, same as Logan Cooley. Makes sense that they were drafted in the same year. So I wouldn't drop him. Like that would be hard for me to do. Even though, yeah, the shots being down is a real bummer. It's like all twos, and not even that many twos. Usually ones and zeros, then a couple twos splattered in there. Kind of like similar to Lane Hutson's stat line, to be honest. And Lane Hutson's a defenseman. You would expect more from Slavkovsky. So I hear you. It would be frustrating. It would be hard for me to drop him just because I feel like he has the potential to go off. But depending on how deep your league is, like maybe a couple you hold, but if you're in a 12-team league, you may be holding or like considering dropping Slavkovsky and going for someone else that we've talked about on this episode. Feeling in our dynasty league, we remember we took Stützle. I think Slavkovsky went the pick before. I'm pretty happy with that. Stützle fell to us. We also traded Jack Hughes to get Stützle.
And we weren't gonna trade Jack Hughes if Stützle didn't fall to us.
Yeah, he's doing so good. I like it's fun from Ottawa. Have this Ottawa guy who's doing so well. The Sens suck, but I don't really care. I just always look at the Tim Stützle stats. But anyways, now I'm going on a big tangent because we're supposed to be on Montreal. Mike Matheson missed a couple games, was back versus the Rangers, scored in the 4-3 loss, but something to watch is he wasn't on the top power play. He didn't get a spot back right away. Lane Hutson held the top power play spot with Suzuki and Caulfield and co. Though I see it was like one power play, so maybe it's not worth reading too much into it. Definitely something to watch. Lane Hutson in his tenure on the top power play with Matheson away. No power play points, but he does have assists in 3 straight games. Like I said, even strength. Also 3 2-2 shots in the last 3 games for Hutson. He went a long way in the season, not ever taking more than 1 shot. Only on November 14th did he have his first 2-shot game. And since then, the majority of games have been 2 or more shots. So good for Lane Hutson. Maybe he another like young player who might just be improving as things go. So if he holds top power play, that would be great. That might just be something of, an anomaly for a 1 power play game. But yeah, something to watch going into next season to see if Hutson can take another step. Obviously, taking more shots is the big thing for someone like him. It helps Quinn Hughes go from great to insane. And let's see if it could help Hutson go from not rosterable to someone you want on most fantasy teams.
Yeah, and I'm going to just clarify one thing you said where lately Hutson is taking 2 or more shots each game. It has never been more until today.
Yeah, until the last game.
Or Saturday, whichever. Season high 3 shots. Yeah, that's the first time Lane Hutson has taken 3 shots in a game.
But will it be the last? Remember before he took 2 shots for the first time, and now it's become regular.
I hope it's the first of many. 3 assists in 3 games for Hutson. Power play 1 again today, as you mentioned. Hudson's been on the top power play for 4 games. No power play points in that time. And so for that reason, I'm just going to say that the sky isn't falling on Mike Matheson yet. And I could see Hutson and Matheson swapping at least once more this year. But for the short term, yeah, I would get on Lane Hutson for sure. Also, Cole Caulfield, want to shout him out. Shooting again. He's doing it finally. 4 straight games with 3 or more shots for Cole Caulfield after he'd basically gone a month without doing that at all. So welcome back to Cole Caulfield's shots on goal.
That's why you can't read too much into a guy like that's on a cold streak with like shots going away when he's like a known big shooter. It was obviously going to happen eventually. I guess we'll see now if it holds. Brian, who would you take if they're both available to you? Lane Hutson or Jared Spurgeon? They're both in free agency. Say they have the same schedule.
Yeah, I'll take Lane Hutson.
Huh.
How about you?
I think I'd go Spurgeon.
I feel like have you ever rostered Jared Spurgeon before? You're talking like someone who hasn't.
Look, I like top power play in Minnesota right now. I think it's a good place to be.
All right.
Better than top power play in Montreal, which Hutson might not even be. So take us to our next team, pal, as we are at 10:20 p.m.
Oh my
on a work
freaking
night.
goodness. What are we
Thanks to
even
the patrons for supporting us as we damage our careers and personal
Families.
lives and our families to try to put on a good show here.
Montreal, we're talking about Hudson and Matheson, potentially swapping spots on the top power play. We've had some talk in Seattle of that happening too. Now, especially with the return of Vince Dunn, we'll see exactly what the fallout from that. But that's my segue. We've got two teams with two capable top power play quarterbacks. Let's go to Seattle and get out of there quick before we fall asleep.
Well, hey, I mean, Seattle might have three, right? Like Vince Dunn is back. They ran 3 forwards, 2 defensemen on their top power play in their last game, which they lost to San Jose, as we mentioned. Vince Dunn, 4 shots, 2 hits, a block in his return. No points, but still, that's a nice little stat line there. But Riker Evans, who's been the second power play behind Montour this whole time, but it's been kind of even. He's still doing really well. He had 5 assists in his last 4 games. I wonder if Seattle could be one of those rare teams that sustains 3 fantasy relevant defensemen. If they play 2 even power plays and they put 2 defensemen on one of them and one on the other, could be possible. I think, I just don't want to completely I think like the knee-jerk reaction would be like Dunn is back, forget about Riker Evans, but I feel like I wouldn't do that. But I'm curious if you disagree here.
Disagree with what?
Oh.
Sorry. I it's just for I've been really good lately.
Yeah. I said Riker Evans is doing really well.
Yeah.
He has 5 points in the last 4 games, and even though Dunn is back, I don't think that necessarily means that Evans is someone you could just you should just toss away because they're kind of 2 even power plays. And
got it. Yeah. Right. So if you have Riker Evans, you essentially have like a power play split guy. I'm not optimistic though. Like Seattle has never really supported a whole lot of guys offensively, so I think like a defenseman on a split power play isn't quite enough to be consistently rosterable. But Evans is on a bit of a roll, so you can hang on to him while it's lasting. If Hudson was out there for me, though, I would swap out Riker Evans for Lane Hudson if I had a move to spare. Because also with Evans, if the points don't stick around, the peripherals aren't there to wait a couple games to see if they come back. Once Evans goes cold again. He does have 3 power play points recently, so he is producing on the power play, but I'm just, and I'm not ruling him out as an offensively capable defenseman. This is a bit of a split power play effect, a bit of a Seattle effect for me.
Okay, when you say 3 power play points recently, you mean on the season overall?
Oh, yeah, sorry, on the whole season. Yes,
yeah.
3 power play points.
To be fair, Riker Evans has better peripherals than Lane Hudson. Evans has blocks sometimes, 2-3 blocks a lot of the time in his game log, also some hits. So definitely I would say, but if you're comparing the two, I think Hudson is the one where if the points go away, you have nothing. With Evans, you still do get some decent-ish peripherals. So I might even think Evans might be just I think I take Evans over Lane Hudson, assuming that it's Matheson back on the top power play, which I have a hunch it will be. And even if not, I don't know. I guess we'll see. I'm not super high. I know I brought it up because I'm trying to sell things here to make it interesting, but Lane Hudson I still feel might not be worth rostering long term in fantasy, and Riker Evans is really impressing me. Though we'll have to see how things shake out with a few more games with Vince Dunn back in the lineup. I'll mention, by the way, on Seattle, Bjorkstrand, 5 points in his last 4 games, so he's the current hot forward on Seattle. I feel like every week it's someone else. There was a good Shane Wright game earlier, but yeah, anyway. But do you think what are the chances that Oliver Bjorkstrand is the hottest forward when we come back in a week from now on Seattle?
50-50.
Oh, that's pretty good then.
That is high. I know.
Could be McCann. Could be, but Schwartz.
Yeah, it could be anyone. And I think that's why I give it 50-50. I don't know if the odds really work out that way. I don't know if it should anyone,
be then it would be 20% chance or something.
Yeah, or 10% chance spread out across 10 guys. I don't know. Someone who's better at math, please solve this for me. But Bjorkstrand, 12 shots in his last 4 games. That's decent. That's nice. Way to go. OBJ.
Seattle plays 4 times next week. Maybe you try to ride it, but no guarantees for Bjorkstrand.
Well, Seattle plays 4 times next week. I don't know how many times Philadelphia plays, but
3.
They have 3. So Elon, 4 games of Bjorkstrand versus 3 games of Sean Couturier. Who you got?
I think Couturier. Honestly, like we talked about Couturier last week. We're like, this guy's like been on the top line, top power play for a while, not doing anything. Finally starting to do something. Maybe we need to pay attention. Normally, we're interested in guys like this. He continued to do well. Couturier picked himself up like 5 points in his last five. He didn't get a point in that game on Saturday versus St. Louis, though. If you watch the highlights, Couturier was totally robbed by Binnington. It was like a rebound. He had like basically an open net, and Binnington dove with his glove and made an incredible save. So he did have 4 shots in that game, Couturier, including that one that was like likely should have been a goal. Not should have been a goal because obviously Binnington made a great save. But just to say, like Couturier is on a hot streak. Really, it's like Konechny's on the blazing hot streak. I don't want to give Couturier like so much credit, say he's back to being an amazing player. But like Travis Konechny is so hot, and Couturier plays with him all the time. I jumped on him. And next week's schedule is a little frustrating. It's 3 games, and it's Thursday and then Saturday, Sunday. So if you grab Couturier, you're just sitting and waiting and not getting anything all the way till Thursday. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I think it might be worth it. So I don't. Yeah. That's my opinion. I want the top line, top power play guy playing with Konechny right now.
I don't think you're out on like such a crazy limb here. You've got top line, top power play, and we did talk about last week. And we did talk about last week how Couturier, it wasn't that long ago that he's been a productive NHLer. He's just had some really low lows since then. So I'm with you. I will also take 3 games of Couturier versus 4 games of Bjorkstrand. We are now at the 24th ranked team, and we're in the real doldrums now. Okay, we're down to we've gotten to Pittsburgh, who I talked about when we were at Edmonton, shooting just 9% on the season. But like, do they deserve it? Maybe a little bit more. They deserve it than some of the other, like than Edmonton, who's shooting 9%. What's to talk about here in Pittsburgh, Elon? What do we?
I got something for you.
Yeah, there's a new guy. The new guy.
Yeah, Phil Tomasino came from the Preds for a 4th round pick in 2027. And I feel like the Preds may have just gotten rid of another good one. They can't help themselves from giving away their players who then do well elsewhere. Tomasino has scored goals in 2 straight now. He's had 4 and 7 shots in those 2 games. He's playing in the top 6, playing with Malkin. I don't know, like about for fantasy, if I'm like diving all over Tomasino just because Pittsburgh has been a little bit of a mess. But in a deep enough league, I'd be interested in a dynasty league. I'd be very interested if he was dropped. I think the Predators just don't know how to deal with these young prospects of theirs. That guy in Columbus, who's the defenseman in Columbus again, who has continued to produce really well. Dante Fabro has been playing top pairing with Zach Werenski. Fabro has 6 points in his last 8 games. Free. Waived. And now basically free. Tomasino goals in 2 straight. I think that I would be really annoyed if I owned the Preds. I would be mad at the GM, and if I was a fan, I'd also be mad.
Yeah, there's a lot to be mad about. But getting Philip Tomasino for Pittsburgh seems like it could be a good thing. Elon, I'm with you. Like, I'm interested. 11 shots in his 2nd and 3rd games as a Pen combined. I love that. 18 minutes a night for Tomasino in his first game in Pittsburgh. That was the most minutes Tomasino has seen since April 10th, 2023. 1.5 years ago. So Nashville has internally moved on from this guy a while back. Now he gets a fresh start. I'm not expecting like huge things necessarily from Tomasino, but I guess we have a new streaming option here in Pittsburgh, and maybe in this moment, he's the next one, right? You've got Crosby, Malkin, Rust, Raquel, Tomasino, which basically just says like, forget Beauvillier and Bunting, who have both had their moments in Pittsburgh, so why not Tomasino, who was drafted 24th overall in 2019. He's still 23 years old. He's yet to be an impact player in the NHL, but in parts of 3 seasons in the AHL has been like almost a point per game player over nearly 100 games in Milwaukee of the AHL. So that's what Tomasino's got going for him. And from Philip Tomasino, well, you were talking about Nashville as a team that doesn't know how to develop their prospects. Detroit has faced that similar accusation, denying them the opportunity to spread their wings and develop, fly in development terms. And that's where we find ourselves now, heading to Detroit, talking about, I don't think, any particular prospect.
Nah, I don't really want to talk about a prospect right now. Patrick Kane has been hurt. I don't think I don't think we have an update yet, as far as I know. Like, it's not necessarily a long-term thing, but like he was trending back. Oh, he might be back next week. Actually, I'm seeing a tweet here from Daniela Bruce. Patrick Kane is trending to be back on Tuesday in Boston. So you don't want to read too much into the lines. Tarasenko has been on the top line and actually doing pretty well lately. Playing with Larkin and Lucas Raymond. Lucas Raymond really on a nice run. But yeah, Tarasenko scored today against Vancouver, and he also scored and had an assist against New Jersey. I'll be interested to see what the lines will be when Patrick Kane is back. Maybe they'll keep those lines the same, though I guess Detroit did just lose this game against Vancouver for whatever that's worth. Cam Talbot is hurt, apparently. Got injured in the middle of this game. There wasn't an update from Derek Lalonde, who exited in the second period, looks like, in the 2P, according to this tweet. So I guess we'll know more tomorrow. If Talbot is out, like, Lyon is already hurt. We're not going to recommend Husso. This is another Spencer Martin situation, likely, if you jump on Ville Husso. So
Yeah, minus the wins.
Yeah. I don't even know who's the next guy that comes up. I mean, Detroit has a couple of really good prospect goalies. I wonder if one of them comes up. But yeah, we'll wait and see. Hopefully Talbot is fine.
Hopefully Talbot's fine. I just added him. I could have really benefited from him finishing the game and winning.
Yeah,
So
Shams is saying, by the way,
too
Marco
bad.
Casper's looking good. So he's the prospect we could have brought up. But Brian, we have him in our Dynasty League. Man, our team's going to be so good in a couple of years. Maybe this year.
Detroit, because of their inability to develop their prospects, their coach takes a lot of heat. Jeff Blashill did before, and now Derek Lalonde is too. Not sure if he's the solution, and we have seen some very angry people in Anaheim about the coaching staff there, and Greg Cronin, who doesn't seem to be making lemons. Oh, no, making lemonade out of lemons. I'm not even sure he has lemons. He might have oranges or grapefruits, something better, and yet it's still not even lemonade in Anaheim. They're not scoring a whole lot of goals. How are they doing tonight, Elon? They have 2 goals. They had
They're
2
doing
goals
good.
at the
It's
last
3-3
update.
right now.
3 goals
3-3
tonight.
versus the
Congrats.
Sens.
Yeah.
And 3 points for Troy Terry. So nice to see him bouncing back. 3 assists. Frank Vetrano, 2 goals and an assist. It's been all the same line. Ryan Strome, 2 assists. So that's the hot line today. For a little while, Trevor Zegras has been going off. Zegras, before today, was on a run of, I'm just bringing it up here. Yeah, now this is his second pointless game in a row, so that's a bummer. Before that, he had 4 straight games with points. Maybe this is the end, and we're going to go back to the Terry Vetrano Strome line being the one that's producing. I'm not sure. I'm just happy for Troy Terry is someone who a lot of us drafted and just wanted 55, 60 point pace to go along with a good schedule. And it started okay, but then was looking bad. But a good game today. And Terry also has been going lately. Zegras, I don't know, he should be good. And he went on this little run. It's hard for me to believe. I was going to ask you if Zegras maybe is starting to turn things around a little bit, but now we're seeing a couple cold games. I'm ready to jump ship. I don't know.
I think Zegras needs a new team or new coach, new something to have meaningful change here. It's great. Through 17 games, Zegras had just 4 points. Then he had 6 points in 5 games. Played a season high 20 minutes on Friday. Still not getting consistent power play building in Anaheim, but who is? 6 Zegras going into tonight had 6 multi-shot games in a row. It's nice to see something from him, and this makes him someone who I would happily stream in to get a game on Anaheim, which I wasn't there last week, but I am now, and I think there's so much more to see from this guy, and I just don't know when we're going to get to see it.
Yeah. Well, I'll mention another guy on Anaheim quickly. So Dostal in tonight. We'll see if he pulls out the win. It's 3-3 with 2 minutes left against the Sens. John Gibson has been very good in his games recently. 4 quality starts in his 4 wins, 5 quality starts in his last 6 games. So he's been really good since returning. I don't know if Anaheim has a reason to not just still go close to 50-50 regardless, though we do know they've been trying to trade John Gibson forever. So maybe if he's doing well, they just put him in for a while until another team bites. We do have some teams that could use a goalie, of course. So maybe Gibson, this is the year where it finally happens and he gets moved. And I'm curious if he still has some value. I'd be curious to see what Gibson could do on another team. In one of my dynasty leagues, the one I was talking to you about that I'm doing with John, we actually got a pick to take Gibson from a team that was right against the salary cap. I'm curious. We're not in our window. We're hoping to compete in a couple years, and I think I'm thinking maybe Gibson will end up being a guy we can depend on. Well, it'll be interesting to see what he's like as a 33-year-old, hopefully on a new team by then. But okay,
Yeah.
where should we go next, pal?
Well, I'll just say for Gibson, so far, we are seeing a return to form that we haven't seen from him for like 6 years, since 2018-19. And I wonder if he just needed to get healthier. Like, it might have been a really good thing that he had, like, maybe the longest break he had from playing that I think we've seen in a while, where he wasn't like really actively injured. So I'm hopeful. Elon, we've got a handful of teams left. Let's just lightning round them. I'm gonna skip the segues, and we're gonna burn right through them. I'm even gonna
Sounds
tell
good.
you right off the hop. Okay, we're gonna go from Long Island to Chicago to Calgary, St. Louis to Boston.
I'm not
Good
going to remember
job.
this.
And then Nashville. No, I'll remind you. But I'm just.
Okay.
How about we start in with the Islanders? Let's do two at a time. Islanders and Chicago.
Okay.
Can
So
you do it?
I can do it. The Islanders have been dealing with a Pajot injury. He's just day to day. The Simon Holmstrom has been a beneficiary of, I guess, Pajot being out because he was getting some top line deployment. So Holmstrom has been playing with Horvat and Anders Lee, and Holmstrom has 2 straight games with 2 goals in each of those games. Gaudette or not Gaudette? I think should be the question for anyone scoring a bunch of goals unexpectedly. But like this is on a good line. But I guess Gaudette's also on a good line, right? Playing with Stützle. So yeah, how much should we believe in what Simon Holmstrom's doing over on the Islanders?
I'm going to say Holmstrom, not Gaudette. 23rd overall pick in 2019. So he's a first rounder, and his career's just getting started. Hasn't had a whole lot of opportunity. Got little glimpses last season. We'll see how long he can stick on a top line this time around. 6 shots on Friday for Holmstrom. That was nice. Also, I just want to shout out Brock Nelson, who is getting rolling now. And Anders Lee still hot. 6 points in 4 games. 3 goals, 3 assists. Good for him.
Over in Chicago, they showed some signs of life. They had a big 6-2 win over the Stars. It was Casey DeSmith in net, but still, Taylor Hall had a hat trick in that game. I'm going to go make a prediction right now that that's the last hat trick of Taylor Hall's career.
I love that prediction. Like, I don't know if
apologize,
I'm...
but
Like, I think I'll get on board with it, but it's a funny one.
I don't even know if it's that hot a take at this point. I don't think anyone was predicting any more hat tricks moving forward. Tyler Bertuzzi, 4 assists in his last 4 games, couple of them on the power play.
I know we're supposed to be rushing this, but what percentage of NHLers do you think have scored their last career hat trick?
Of like, I don't know. That's so
or like
hard.
will never get another hat trick in their careers?
Like most of them.
Yeah.
Most people won't
Is it
even
like
get
90,
one hat trick.
Is it 90%?
That seems probably right. I don't think
How
Adam
many
Gaudette's
players
gonna
playing
have a
today
hat
will
trick.
ever get a hat trick again? Okay. Sorry, you were talking about Tyler Bertuzzi.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's got 4 points the last 4 games, a couple on the power play. Who's supposed to be? He was drafted in most couple divisions. It's been a huge disappointment. Maybe there's something there. By the way, Alex Vlasic has been on the top power play. He has 2 assists in his last 4 games, both power play assists. I wonder if maybe Vlasic could keep up like a half point per game. Maybe gets an even strength every once in a while to make up for when he doesn't keep this pattern going of a power play assist every couple games. So I think he's someone in a deep enough league. Like, I'll take a Spurgeon or a Riker Evans over Alex Vlasic, but if those guys are available, like not available, then maybe Vlasic is worth looking at. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think that we're interested in Bertuzzi, but I just wanted to bring him up as like on a minor hot streak, 4 points in 4 games.
Yeah, worth bringing up. I'll also bring up someone else who's getting in on this is Connor Bedard. Finally, including today's game, 4 points in his last 3 games, 2 goals, 2 assists, 5 shots today, 4 shots on Friday against Minnesota. That is just such great news for anyone who's been waiting on Connor Bedard. All 4 points have come on the power play, so some 5-on-5 would be nice. But I mean, you were just look. Chicago's scoring goals. A lot of people are benefiting. Finally, interestingly, Bedard still managed to be a -4 against Columbus. So that's a shame.
Most people are minus against Columbus. All right, who are the next 2 teams?
We've got Calgary and St. Louis.
All right, Calgary. Look, Nazem Kadri got going. Just like we predicted. Remember, he was cold, and we were like, I would hold on to Kadri. I think he'll turn it around. 5 points his last 5 games. Had a goal and assist and 6 shots versus Pittsburgh. It was a 6-2 loss, but of the 2 goals, Kadri had a goal and an assist and 6 shots. So you take what you can get. I think if Kadri is available in free agency, I would be all over him. Let's compare him. A name I was going to throw at you was like Peterka. Let's say Peterka and Kadri are both in free agency. Who do you go for? I'm imagining from what you said, you're going Kadri at this point, right?
No, I'm going Peterka.
Oh,
that's how I feel. I don't know if you would agree. Just Kadri, like Calgary, just is too much of a desert. I think.
Yeah.
Kadri, he's taken 13 shots recently. He scored on 3 of them, and that's helped him pull his shooting percentage to where it ought to be. But Calgary on the whole, like, I don't know. Kadri's playing with Pospisil and Kuzmenko at 5-on-5 and on a split power play.
Right.
None of that seems good.
Yeah, I'm with you. No, I'd probably also go Paterka, but as someone who has Kadri, I'm happy to see some production. Hopefully, he can help me do it in a week where I'm not getting blown out by the top scoring team in the division. I should give some kudos, by the way, to edit point for just a second here to Tuck My Body, who is 321 couple points on the week. Not fair. I have 250. So I've been out of this matchup for a long time. Okay, you said St. Louis is next. So we have another one of these day-to-days where I'm not even sure what to say because I don't know how long it's going to be. But Buchnevich is hurt. We don't know necessarily for how long. Looks like there was a quote from Monty saying you don't want to take any risks of exasperating what happened to the lower body injuries. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds like if you're worried about exasperating, that it's not like too serious, right? We'll see. In the meantime, a random, I don't want to say random, but a guy that you wouldn't have expected to be hot on St. Louis is Dylan Holloway, who's not getting the best deployment. He's playing with Zach Bolduc and Oscar Sundqvist on, I guess you'd call that the third line. Also, Holloway has been on the second power play, but that hasn't stopped him from putting up 5 points in his last 3 games. Scored against Philly yesterday, scored 2 goals against New Jersey a couple days before that. Some decent shots from Dylan Holloway also. Although he's doing a lot better than Jeff Skinner, I'll tell you that. I think Edmonton would definitely rather have Holloway back on the team. But yeah, any chance he's someone that's worth actually jumping on if he's still in free agency, or do you think it's just a random hot streak that's going to go away?
I think it's for now. I'll call it a random hot streak, and I'll do what I did with, Tomasino and say I think he's like streamer territory. Like now, Holloway is someone worth considering, but he's playing with Bolduc and Sundqvist at 5-on-5, second power play, 3 goals on 7 shots. I like Holloway's shot totals in general. And he's a former first-round pick, 14th overall in 2020. He's 23 years old. So, yeah, in my notes, I wrote entering streamer territory, and that's what I'll stick with. St. Louis is kind of a sad place, but they're doing better since Robert Thomas came back, I think. Or at least it feels like there. It feels like there's hope. All right, last 2 teams. Elon, you called it. Boston all the way at the end, followed by Nashville. At the very end, they are the only team in the league shooting less than 8%. And they deserve better, all right? But I don't know how much better.
Okay, so on Boston, they did pick up a 6-3 win against Montreal today. So that's good. They also had a 6-goal game against the Islanders. So maybe they'll start climbing out of the basement of goals. McAvoy, super cold, but had an assist in that game against the Islanders. And I'm seeing that he scored 2 goals today against Montreal. So just when maybe you're starting to give up hope, I think that Boston's going to hopefully score more goals than will be bottom 2 in the league in goals by the end of the year. So I think you still want to hold the top power play defenseman. It's been a struggle. Showing today what he can do. 2 goals, 4 shots, 3 blocks, 2 hits. It's a good stat line. He's still capable, but obviously, you're disappointed if you spent a lot of draft capital on McAvoy. What are you going to do at this point? Pasternak, a goal. Woo! His first goal in like forever. I'll take it. It's a start.
Yeah,
maybe he'll get going soon.
Boston, not exciting in terms of goal scoring, which is why we're rushing, like we're racing through these last teams here because the offense is hard to find. And Charlie McAvoy is on a low offense team, and I'm not sure he's much of a generator himself. I've shared that already. So McAvoy, could you buy low on him? Yeah. Will you feel great about it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think you'll be I think the person selling him isn't expecting him to be like this bad. So, or otherwise he would have just dropped him at this point. They would have just dropped him, sorry. Otherwise they would have just dropped him at this point. But I don't think you're going to buy low and then have some huge explosion. I think he'll just kind of be a little better, but nothing exceptional. Then over in Nashville, so Philip Forsberg is cold, which I think we haven't really talked about. We've talked about Nashville struggling overall, but now with pointless in 3 games, Forsberg down to 17 points in 25 games. That's a 56-point pace. Way below his huge outburst last year, 94 points on the season, 48 goals. So if Nashville's going to be this bad, maybe Forsberg and Pasternak have something in common of guys who we expected so much from and not doing much. So I don't know, Brian, if you have any words of the consolation for the Forsberg managers. And then I'll also just mention with this Annunen trade, just to close the loop on that, I will just say that first of all, UC Saros 4 straight 3+ goals against games recently, so I'd imagine Anunin gets in the net at some point to give Saros a break. I also think, for what it's worth, this is like a long-term thing because I have Anunin in a couple of my dynasty leagues as like not someone I was hoping would be kind of like a bit of a goalie of the future, not someone to depend on big time. And now I might be thinking, oh no, stock way down. He's on Nashville where they have Saros locked in for like a million years. For what it's worth, like remember when Askarov got traded and then people like he demanded a trade and then people in Nashville were like, oh, we had a whole plan for him. He was, like if he would have stuck with the program, things would have been really good. And you should see look at what Saros did when he was behind Pekka Rinne, and then over time he became like such a great goalie. So they had that whole plan for Askarov, so maybe now they could just like plug Anunin into that plan and turn him into a superstar in like 5-6 years. So I don't know. For anyone that's like really bummed about it, if you have Anunin stocks, maybe 5 years from now he'll be good in the Nashville system if he sticks around there, of course. But we'll see how he does like next week, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Yeah, that was inspiring. I like you trying to find the bright side. Marchessault, you mentioned at least finding a couple goals. Like he hadn't done anything, by the way, before he scored those. I was ready to just be like, yeah, it's not working in Nashville yet. Marchessault had that 6-shot game, followed up with 2, 5, 1, 3-shot games. So still all over the place. The Preds aren't scoring. They're deserving some more, but not a ton. Their power play is the 7th most dangerous in the league in Nashville, but they're in the bottom 10 in shooting percentage at 12.5%, which is one of the reasons they're down at 32nd in the league in shooting percentage. So that'll change, and you've got to kind of check game by game to see if Nashville's getting their stuff together, and I don't see that they are yet. So we'll see if that changes anytime soon. And getting their stuff together, one, just means better luck on the power play, but 5-on-5, they're still like a pretty icky team. They don't inspire a whole lot of confidence. Philip Forsberg, can I say anything inspiring about him? Not really. I mean, he is only scoring on half the shots that he usually scores on, 6.5 shooting percentage at 5-on-5. On ice shooting percentage at 5-on-5, less than 6%, also bad. Forsberg looks like someone on a team that's struggling. And that's it. I'd buy low and hope for better, but we are at the quarter mark. I have Timo Meier in one league, and I'm trying to think what I sell for Forsberg. I bet that's a trade I could pull off. And I'm trying
to...
so?
Things have really changed. Meier, people were pulling their hair out about him just recently. I don't know if you can pull that off.
Yeah, okay. So maybe not. Okay. Anyway, I'm just try. Putting it out there. There it is.
Maybe Dylan Strome. Would you trade Dylan Strome? You were mentioning before how you had a trade offer him.
I don't have Dylan Strome. Would I trade
if
Dylan?
You did.
If I did have Dylan Strome,
would you trade him for Forsberg? You got to, right? If you wouldn't take,
I think
Bedard,
so. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'd be ready to get burned.
I think Forsberg will be fine, but yeah, maybe not like as great as last year.
I also thought Nashville would be fine by now. They're not.
Yeah.
I'm worried.
That's fair. I mean, who are you more worried about? Boston, like Forsberg or Pasternak? Nashville or Boston?
Sorry, I was responding to your message. Didn't you say Marchessault scored a couple goals today?
No, I wrote it in my notes. I didn't say that.
I swore you said it because I didn't read your notes.
I didn't even say anything about Marchessault. Marchessault didn't even play today.
Oh crap! Who scored? Okay, don't worry about it.
We'll just leave it in. Then I asked you about who's going to bounce back first, or who are more worried about, Nashville or Boston?
The team that I think is less likely to start scoring goals is Boston. I'm gonna.
Oh no.
Yeah. Because I think Nashville's got this like clear room to improve on the power play. And not that Boston doesn't have some room to improve, but if I'm looking at personnel on paper, I could see the Preds figuring things out faster than the Bruins. And by the way, Marchessault, sorry, I said he scored a couple goals. I thought I heard you say that, Elon. I didn't hear you say that, as you clarified off mic. So he still is really struggling. So I mentioned I was worried before he scored a couple goals today. He didn't score a couple. He didn't even play today. This is we're past the 2.5 hour mark, just about. So thank you all for listening. It's been a lot of fun. I'm gonna throw to Elon to thank you again. Oh, also big news.
Ooh.
I just wanted.
I didn't know we had big news.
We have big news. We're gonna open a Keeping Karlsson merch shop. just in time for
Oh,
the holidays.
cool. We should
Yeah.
probably mention that at the start of some show at some point.
You know what? Next week, I didn't know at the start of the show that we were going to go live, and now I
All right,
do.
well, we'll post for the patrons and listen to. If you're not a patron, then you'll find out. We'll mention it again. But yeah, that'll be cool. I know that Elizabeth's been helping to work on that behind the scenes. So yeah, I'm excited to see how that all shakes out. And yeah, but anyways, thanks everyone for listening. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Keeping Karlsson, a mega show going through every team and taking our time and really making sure to provide some value to the last few teams. Maybe we rushed a little bit, but yeah, I had a really fun time chatting with you, Brian. And yeah, hopefully everyone likes the episode. Make sure to subscribe to Keeping Karlsson to get all the other content that we'll be continuing to pour into your podcast player. A couple short shifts coming up next week. Another matchup maximizer. Hope you like the one from yesterday where I looked at a more normal schedule finally for next week. Had a lot of fun players that I recommended that you may want to stream in. But with that, Brian, let's cue the outro music. Why don't you go ahead and read us the credits? Take us out of here.
All right, this episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast is presented by Dauber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our super supporters, Patty, Ricard, David, Ryan, Connie, Tom, Stephen, Ryan, Zach, Andrea, Sammy, Caton, Philip, Aaron, Patrick, Brian, Michael, Roman, Top Cheese, Paul, Richard, and Nicola. Thank you all. Thank you to our Cupful coordination team, Kevin and John, and everyone playing in the Cupful. What an amazing league. You're all doing a great job of staying active. Thank you. We love it. Thank you, Elon and Shams, for keeping us up to date via GameDayTweets.com. Shout out to the Short Shifts crew. Logo art by BrandonWeeb.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dauber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dauber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey Puckpedia, The Athletic, HockeyGoalies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, and Yahoo.
All right, great job as always, Brian. Also, great job to Troy Terry. I didn't realize he had 9 shots today to go along.
I just saw that. 9
Holy
shots.
moly. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening, and looking forward to doing this all again next week. Maybe we won't go through every team, but we'll still cover a lot, I'm sure, as we always do.
And until then, keep doing what you can to make sure that fantasy hockey is for everyone.
Cool. Thanks all. See you in the Discord. Bye-bye. Bye, Brian.
Bye. Bye. Thanks, chat.